Chapter 2660 Abusing Huang Wu. In addition, there were two young men beside Huang Wu. The two of them looked similar, but their figures were completely different. One of them was short and fat while the other was tall and thin. Both of them stared at Lu Ming with an unfriendly expression. "It's you again, looking for abuse." Lu Ming cast an indifferent glance at Huang Wu. "Kid, you're good. This time I'll cripple you. You guys go and break his limbs. It'll make him cry on the ground," Huang Wu said in a ruthless manner. It was not that he did not want to kill Lu Ming, but there was a rule in the Kongxian sect that disciples of the same sect were not allowed to kill each other. However, fighting was not forbidden. As long as they did not kill or cripple their cultivation, they could do whatever they wanted. Otherwise, Huang Wu would have crushed Lu Ming's bones and scattered his ashes. "Junior brother Huang Wu, don't worry. I'll break his limbs and make him cry on the ground like a cripple," the short and fat young man said ferociously. Divine power burst out from him, and he pressed down on Lu Ming like a mountain. At the same time, the tall and thin young man also burst out with divine power and stepped toward Lu Ming. 6th level Void God Realm. The short and fat youth and the tall and thin youth were both at the 6th level of the Void God Realm. The divine power they controlled was undoubtedly king-grade divine power. Lu Ming frowned slightly. With his current cultivation, he was probably not a match for a 6th level Void God Realm expert who had king-grade divine power. "Kneel down! Kneel down!" The short and fat youth and the tall and thin youth shouted and attacked at the same time. Their weapons were a giant hammer. When they waved it, the power was amazing. Boom! Boom! The wind whistled and the terrifying force crushed toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming took a step forward and retreated rapidly. "You want to leave? Stay!" The Lu brothers bellowed and chased after him relentlessly. Their huge hammers were like a storm, blasting towards Lu Ming. This was also an incomplete divine skill. When the two of them worked together, their power would double. "Who said I'm leaving?" At this moment, Lu Ming suddenly stopped. He waved his hand and shouted, "Smash!" A bangle flew out of Lu Ming's hand and turned into a huge ball, which was thrown at the short and fat young man. "Get lost!" The short and fat youth roared as he continued to smash the hammer on the round ball. Boom! There was a huge explosion. Then the short and fat young man's eyes popped out. With a scream, his body flew out like a kite with a broken string. He crashed heavily on the ground and could not get up for a long time. That round ball was naturally Qiuqiu. During these days, Qiuqiu had devoured a large number of divine artifact fragments and metal attribute blacksmithing materials, and it had advanced once again. Now Qiuqiu had already reached 5th level Void God level. With Qiuqiu's strength, it would not be a problem for it to defeat the short and chubby youth who was at the 6th level of the Void God Realm. Unless the other party had reached the 7th level of the Void God Realm and controlled king-grade divine power, he would not be able to resist Qiuqiu. After sending the chunky young man flying, Qiuqiu smacked toward the tall and thin young man. In the end, he was no different from the short and fat young man. He was sent flying by Qiuqiu and fell to the ground, vomiting blood. "What?" Huang Wu's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. "That is a metallic life form?" The commotion here had long since alarmed some of the outer sect disciples in the nearby courtyards, and the scene of Qiuqiu smashing the Lu brothers flying was naturally seen by them. Those people were shocked. He did not expect Lu Ming to have such a powerful metallic life form. "Now it's your turn." Lu Ming's cold eyes swept across Huang Wu. Huang Wu was almost scared to death. He turned around and ran. However, how could his speed be faster than Qiuqiu? Qiuqiu directly flew over and smashed down on Huang Wu's head. Huang Wu tried his best to block, but he was also sent flying. He fell to the ground and spat out a large mouthful of blood. "Just now you said you wanted to break my limbs. Now I'll try it on you." Lu Ming stepped forward and his divine power condensed into a long spear. "Lu Ming, don't you dare. Do you know who my big brother is? My big brother is Huang Wan, a heaven's favorite among the inner disciples. If you dare to hurt me, my big brother will not let you off." Huang Wu roared and threatened Lu Ming. "You talk too much. I'll go," Lu Ming said coldly. He pulled out the long spear and hit Huang Wu's legs. "Arg!" Huang Wu screamed. His legs were broken, and his broken bones were visible as blood gushed out. Although he could recover from such injuries very quickly, the pain was real and would not be reduced at all. "Ah, brat, you're dead. I'm going to turn you into ashes," Huang Wu roared. Bang! Bang! Lu Ming waved his spear again, breaking the bones in Huang Wu's arms. Huang Wu lay on the ground like a pool of mud. Such great courage. The surrounding outer disciples all took in a cold breath. And NBSB he knew Huang Wu sidn't. I tie and still dared to be so ruthless. He was truly a ruthless person. Get lost. Lu Ming kicked Huang Wu and sent him flying. He turned into a black dot in the sky. If it was not for the Kong Xian sect's rule that killing was not allowed, Lu Ming would have killed Huang Wu without any hesitation. Ruthless, he's really ruthless. He'll definitely take revenge on Huang Wu. That's for sure. When the time comes, we'll invite his big brother. If we invite any random outer sect expert, Lu Ming will be in danger. You're too impulsive, not wise. The other outer sect disciples were discussing in secret. Lu Ming's gaze was somewhat unfocused. He was about to return to his room to continue cultivating and strive for a breakthrough as soon as possible. At this time, a beam of light flew over from the distant sky. A middle-aged man appeared in the sky. All disciples who have entered the sect for less than 3,000 years immediately gather at the square at the foot of the mountain. The man's voice boomed out, filling the entire area. After saying that, the middle-aged man repeated himself twice before turning around and leaving. Those who entered the sect within 3,000 years? Lu Ming was surprised and did not understand why. Looks like we'll have to go to that place. I'm so envious. That's right. If I can go there again, I'm afraid I can make a breakthrough in my cultivation. Some of the older outer sect disciples started to discuss among themselves, and many of them looked envious. Those who had just joined like Lu Ming were very surprised but did not ask much. They all flew down the mountain. At the foot of the mountain, there was a huge square. They would meet there. Little Qing. Lu Ming saw Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan the moment he arrived. Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan were both women. Lu Ming. Xian Yanqing smiled when he saw Lu Ming and flew over. Many people cast their gazes at Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. What a beautiful woman. It's a pity that she's already taken. Who's that kid? He actually has such good fortune. I'm so envious. Many male disciples cast envious, jealous, and hateful gazes at Lu Ming. There were even more people who flew towards the female disciples and greeted them, taking the opportunity to close the distance. Chapter 2661 Plant Life. In a short while, more than 600 people had gathered in the square. They were all disciples who had entered the sect within the 3,000 years. At this moment, a few figures flew over from the distance. There were a total of 5 people, some old and some middle-aged. In the middle was a middle-aged man in a loose black robe. Everyone recognized that this was the symbol of an outer sect elder. As for the other 4, judging from their clothes, they had the symbol of an outer sect deacon. I've called you all here today to bring you to a place. ITLL be a trial for you, but ITLL also be an opportunity. ITLL be a benefit for you. The outer sect elder said. Training? Welfare. Everyone was surprised. That's right. On the Kong Xian planet, there's a strange forest with a large number of plant life forms. These plant life forms are very strange. They have a kind of wood crystal in their bodies. This kind of wood crystal contains dense and pure energy. It's very easy for ethereal god realm experts to absorb and refine it. It's a great help for ACCU mulating and increasing divine power. It can help your cultivation base increase a step in a short time. According to the sect's rules, the forest only opens once every 3,000 years. Therefore, all disciples who have joined in the past 3,000 years can enter. Consider it a benefit for you to join the sect. However, some of those plant life forms are very aggressive, and some of them are poisonous. They are dangerous, and can be considered a form of training for you. The outer sect elder explained. Everyone came to a sudden realization. Some people's gazes were filled with eagerness. To have such benefits when one just entered the sect, it was indeed worthy of being a top sect. Buzz! The outer sect elder waved his hand, and a divine combat sword appeared. It then grew rapidly, becoming hundreds of miles wide, and then dozens of miles wide. Go up, I'll take you there. The outer sect elders and 4 outer sect deacons landed on the divine weapon greatsword first. Then Lu Ming and the rest also flew onto the giant sword one by one. Let's go! The outer sect elder shouted. The huge sword turned into a rainbow light and flew into the distance at an extremely fast speed. Lu Ming and the rest were very stable on the giant sword. There were no fluctuations at all. What a fast speed. Is this the strength of a heavenly god? Lu Ming looked at the mountains, rivers, and other things that flitted past in his surroundings. He sighed in his heart. It was too fast. Even with Lu Ming's eyesight, he could not see the scenery that flashed past. The outer sect elder of the Kongxian sect was at least a sky celestial. Such a person could use his body to cross the stars, so his speed was naturally amazing. However, Kongxian planet was too big. Even if a heavenly god brought them there, it would still take some time. What? Lu Ming suddenly looked in one direction. He had sensed that someone was looking at him with killing intent. Lu Ming looked over and saw a few young men. They immediately turned their heads and pretended as if nothing happened. They have killing intent towards me. Are they Huang Wu's people? Lu Ming thought to himself. Lu Ming, those few people have the intention to kill you. Xian Yanqing muttered. Obviously, he had felt it too. Yes, I can feel it. We're in a forest. Be careful. Lu Ming sent a voice transmission to Xian Yanqing. The two of them chatted for a while, and then sat down cross-legged. However, following that, Lu Ming could sense killing intent sweeping toward him from time to time. Although it was well hidden, Lu Ming's spiritual senses were sharp, and he could clearly sense it. After a few hours, the giant sword stopped. There was a huge mountain range ahead. This mountain range was extremely vast. Ancient trees towered into the sky, and one could not see the end of it. The area of this mountain range was probably dozens of times larger than the area of the Heaven Realm, the Primordial Realm, and the Evil God Realm combined. This is our destination, the Forest of Plants. There are a lot of plants living in it. Although the plants are not very strong, and there are almost no existences above the true God Realm, you should know your own strength. Don't lose your life because of greed. Also, you only have 3 months. After 3 months, you must come out. Go. The outer sect elder waved his hand. Buzz. And NBSB whoosh. Immediately, nearly 600 people turned into streaks of light and flew into the mountain range, rushing into the endless forest. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing also flew toward the mountain of plants. Let's go together. Xian Yanjun appeared beside Lu Ming. All right. Lu Ming nodded. They flew for a while and then rushed into the vast mountain range of plants. The 4 of you go in and take a look. If a true god-level plant life form is really born, kill it. After everyone had entered the mountain range, the outer sect elder instructed the 4 deacons. Yes. The 4 deacons' figures flickered, and they also rushed into the mountain range of plants. As for the outer sect elder, he was waiting outside. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, and Xian Yanjun landed in a forest. It was quiet in the forest. Other than the sound of the wind, there was no other sound. Other than plants, there were no other living beings. The 3 of them observed for a while, and then went deep into the forest. Whoosh! When Lu Ming Pa S said by an old vine, the old vine moved. Like a soft whip, it wrapped around Lu Ming. On the old vine, there were sharp thorns that glowed with a green light. It was obvious that they were poisonous. Plant life. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. A divine weapon sword appeared in his hand, and he slashed out. Uft. The old vine was cut in half by Lu Ming, and dark green liquid flowed out. Then Lu Ming saw an old vine uprooting itself and running wildly in an attempt to escape. You still want to leave? Lu Ming cast the ROC Wings technique and caught up to the old vine in a flash. He slashed the root of the old vine. The old vine twitched a few times and stopped moving. Then Lu Ming broke open the old vine and found a green crystal the size of a finger. It was a wood crystal, and it contained a very rich energy essence. Let's check the energy. Lu Ming opened his mouth and inhaled, swallowing the wood crystal. Immediately, the wood crystal turned into rolling energy and poured into the divine fire. Soon, the energy of the wood crystal was directly transformed into divine power. As expected, it can be directly absorbed and transformed. Lu Ming sighed. Refining this wood crystal was even faster than refining a spirit-strengthening pill. However, that old vine was only at the first level of the ethereal god realm, so it didn't have much energy. Then the 3 of them continued forward. However, after walking for a while, he did not find any traces of plant life. Not all the plants in the forest were plant life forms. Many of them were not plant life forms, but just ordinary plants. If this plant life form doesn't take the initiative to attack, it'll be exactly the same as ordinary plants. It'll be very difficult to discover it. Xian Yanqing said. Lu Ming and Xian Yanjun frowned. That was indeed the case. If the plant life form didn't take the initiative to attack, They might not be able to discover it even if it was right next to them. Lu Ming, try Chocho. Chocho is a metallic life form, similar to plant life forms. It's a special life form. Maybe you can sense it, Xian Yanqing suggested. Chapter 2662 The Sacred Son of Reflection sect. Xian Yanqing's words made Lu Ming's eyes light up. That's right, Chocho was a metallic life form, just like plant life forms. It could be considered a type of special life form. Could he sense it? Lu Ming immediately woke Chocho up. Every time Chocho transformed into a bangle and wore it on Lu Ming's hand, it was basically sleeping and digesting the divine artifact fragments and refining materials it had eaten. Crack! Crack! Chocho was awoken and transformed into a round metal ball. A huge mouth appeared on top of it, and it kept on biting. This glutton wants to eat the moment he wakes up. Lu Ming smiled speechlessly. He took out a fragment of a level 5 divine artifact and threw it to Chocho. Chocho bit it and ate it with loud crunching sounds. Sparks shot out from between its teeth, and a fragment of a grade 5 divine artifact was instantly destroyed by Chocho. Chocho, try to sense if there are plant life forms here. Let's see if you can sense them. Lu Ming continued to play the ball. Crack! Crack! A pair of eyes appeared on Chocho's mouth, and it started to look around. Buzz! All of a sudden, Chocho flew out toward a tree that was as thick as a person's thigh and bit down. Buzz! Immediately, the tree jumped up and its branches swept around. The roots were like venomous snakes as they coiled around Chocho. There really is. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, and Xian Yinjuan were overjoyed. This tree was right beside them, but they didn't feel it. Buzz! As soon as Xian Yinjuan got close to the tree, he made his move. With a flash of his sword, the tree was split into hundreds of pieces. The wood chips flew all over the sky, and a wood crystal appeared in Xian Yanjin's hand. Buzz! Following that, Chocho flew to the other side and bit down on a plant that looked like a weed. Immediately, the plant also jumped up and ran wildly, but it was killed by Xian Yanqing's sword. Rustle! Rustle! The next moment, the plants around Lu Ming and the group seemed to have moved. At least a dozen types of plants moved. Their roots left the ground and ran wildly into the distance like feet. There were large trees that required a few people to wrap their arms around, slender bamboos, a few large locust trees, and a few old vines. So many. Lu Ming and the few of them were dumbfounded. These plant life forms were invisible when they didn't move. They didn't expect that there would be so many plant life forms around them. Were they trying to ambush them? Kill! Lu Ming and the other two did not hold back and charged towards the plant life forms. These plant life forms were not of high levels. The strongest one was only at 5th level Void God Realm. Not long after, they were all killed by Lu Ming and the others, and they obtained more than 10 wood crystals. This kind of wood crystal was very easy to refine. After the three of them divided it evenly, they swallowed it on the spot and refined it. In less than an hour, he had refined all of them. Lu Ming felt that the divine power in his body had grown a lot. A wisp of divine fire burned in his dantian. Divine power kept flowing out and flowing in all his meridians. As long as his meridians were filled with divine power, Lu Ming would be able to break through to the martial god realm. Continue. Immediately, Lu Ming and the rest led Chocho and started hunting the plant life forms. This forest only opened once every 3,000 years, and there were many plant life forms. A few days later, they had hunted hundreds of them and obtained hundreds of wood crystals, all of which were refined by the three of them. Lu Ming felt that the divine energy in his body was becoming more and more abundant. He was getting closer and closer to the day he could break through. Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjin's cultivation base was slightly higher. They had reached the 3rd level of the Void God Realm. They needed more energy to level up, but they had also made significant progress and were approaching the 4th level of the Void God Realm quickly. A treasure land. This forest was really a treasure land. No wonder the outer sect elder said that it was a benefit for them. As long as he could kill plant life forms, his cultivation would rapidly increase. This was indeed a benefit. This was especially so for Lu Ming and the rest. They could hunt plant life very quickly, which was a rare benefit. Their cultivation speed was completely incomparable to normal cultivation. A 5th level virtual god level tree with a diameter of about 10 meters was split in half by Lu Ming's sword. When dealing with plant life forms, the combat sword was still more convenient. Lu Ming smiled. He was about to go over and peel the wood crystal when suddenly, Lu Ming's hair stood on end, and he retreated rapidly. Boom! An arrow was shot from the front at an astonishing speed. It landed on the ground where he had just stepped on, blasting a huge pit in the ground. Lu Ming's face was a little gloomy as he looked ahead. In a flash, 5 young men, 4 men and 1 woman, appeared in front of him. One of the young men held a large bow. He appeared in front of the tree that Lu Ming had split open and dug out a wood crystal. It's such a waste to give these wood crystals to a few people who are about to die. The young man with the large bow smiled contemptuously. He looked at Lu Ming and the rest as if they were already dead. It's them. Lu Ming narrowed his eyes. These few people were the ones who had repeatedly emitted killing intent towards him. Did Huang Wu send you here? Lu Ming said. I can't say that. The bow-wielding youth smiled and said, Huang Wu and his brother Huang Wen are both under the sacred sun of reflection. You've injured the sacred sun of reflection's people. Do you still want to live? The sacred sun of reflection. Lu Ming understood now. These people were the same as Huang Wu. They were all from the sacred sun of reflection's faction. Lu Ming had abused Huang Wu twice. These people were here to avenge him. These 2 girls are really beautiful. It's a pity to kill them. How about this? I'll give you a chance. You 2 join us and serve us well, and well spare your lives. The other young man had a lecherous look on his face. He looked at Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan evilly. Do you think you've got us all in the bag? Lu Ming said coldly. At the same time, he circulated his divine power, preparing for a big battle at any time. Lu Ming, you're pretty strong and you have a metallic life form. However, you'll definitely die in front of us. The young man with the large bow said coldly, and a powerful aura emanated from his body. And NBSB the other 4 circulated their divine power, their powerful auras and cold killing intent erupting from them. 2 7th-level Void God Realm martial artists. 3 6th-level Void God Realm martial artists. In an instant, Lu Ming could determine the other party's strength. His heart sank slightly. These young men had all been in the sect for 1,000 years, or even 2,000 years. They were all very powerful. Needless to say, the divine power they controlled was king-grade divine power, which was not something ordinary people could compare to. Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjin's combat strength was shocking, but their cultivation was limited. Even a 3rd-level Void God Realm would find it difficult to deal with a 6th-level Void God Realm. Given Lu Ming's abilities, he was no match for a 6th-level virtual god. Qiuqiu's strength was slightly stronger, but a 7th-level Void God-level existence was enough to stop him. The situation was not in their favor. At this time, a figure flashed in the sky, and an old man appeared. This old man was one of the 4 outer sect deacons. The old man saw everything that was happening below. Chapter 2663. Breaking out of the encirclement, the outer sect deacon stood high in the sky and could see everything that was happening below clearly. However, Lu Ming and the rest did not notice him. However, he did not stop her. This brat is so stubborn. My Tianhong faction invited him to join, but he refused. Since he doesn't want to join my Tianhong faction, he will be an enemy sooner or later. I can use the people from the Floating Light faction to get rid of him. There was a flash of ruthlessness in Laozi's eyes. The elder was from the Tianhong Saint Sons faction. In the Kongxian sect, some outer deacons, outer elders, and even inner elders would join some factions to support a certain holy son or holy virgin to become the sect leader. Since Lu Ming did not want to join the Tianhong sect, he would be the enemy of the Tianhong sect if he joined another sect in the future. The old man chuckled, and in a flash, he left the place as if he had not seen anything. You too surrender now. Otherwise, you'll end up in a miserable state. The young man with the bow looked at Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan and spoke again. That's right. Hurry up. I'll give you one last chance. Otherwise, you won't have another chance. The other 7th-level Void God Realm young man also said coldly. Wait, let's charge together. Lu Ming sent a voice transmission to Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan. Lu Ming, Xian Yinjuan and I will cast the Dark Holy Light Cage together later to trap a 7th-tier virtual god. Then we'll charge together. Xian Yanqing replied. Lu Ming nodded silently. At this moment, the other party had already lost his patience. If you're so stubborn, then let's just kill them both. Attack! And NBSB fire! The bow-wielding youth shouted and pulled the bow. His god power surged and an arrow shot out. Retreat! Lu Ming shouted in a low voice and retreated frantically with Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan. You want to leave? Die! The young man with the large bow shouted and shot an arrow. It was an arrow of light that was incomparably resplendent. Like a meteor, it shot toward Lu Ming, emitting a terrifying power. Lu Ming had used the fallen star bow before. He knew that the single-target attack power of the bow and arrow as a weapon was extremely terrifying. Lu Ming did not dare to take it head-on. Qiu. Lu Ming waved his hand and Qiu flew out. It turned into a shield and blocked in front of him. Clang! The arrow was like a shooting star, hitting the shield that Qiu had transformed into. The shield trembled non-stop, but in the end it was still blocked. Kill! At the same time, the other 4 young men and women charged at Lu Ming and the other 2. In particular, the 7th-level Void God-level powerhouse was the fastest and approached Lu Ming in the blink of an eye. Downwind sword slash, die. The young man bellowed as he swung his saber. A crescent-shaped saber light slashed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming did not have the time to think. He waved his long spear to block the attack. This long spear was a level 9 low-grade divine artifact. The long spear vibrated, and Lu Ming exerted the incomplete divine skill to its maximum. Clang! The long spear and the saber light collided. Lu Ming felt an extremely terrifying force flowing along the long spear and surging toward him, wanting to tear his body apart. Pfft! Lu Ming spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body was sent flying hundreds of meters. Strong. He was too strong. With Lu Ming's current combat strength, he was no match for a 6th-level virtual god-level powerhouse, let alone a 7th-level virtual god-level powerhouse. The difference was too great. One move and Lu Ming was injured. However, with this delay, Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan finally made their move. Dark Holy Light Technique. With 2 shouts, it was as if 2 suns had suddenly appeared in the sky, one pitch black and the other pure white. The black and white light intertwined and turned into a dark holy light cage, enveloping the 7th-tier Void God Realm expert. Boom! The opponent's attack did not break the dark holy light cage. However, the other 3 6th-level Void God Realm powerhouses had also arrived. Boom! 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 The 3 of them attacked at the same time, launching a terrifying attack. Whoosh! Whoosh! Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan struck out with their swords, and their sword lights collided with their enemies. Clang! Clang! Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan used the force of the explosion to retreat. A level 9 low-grade god artifact. The other party looked at the swords in Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjin's hands with greed. The swords in Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjin's hands were naturally given to them by Lu Ming. They were both level 9 low-grade divine artifacts. Retreat! Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan retreated to Lu Ming's side, and the 3 of them continued to retreat. Qiu also flew back quickly and met up with Lu Ming and the rest. Don't even think about leaving, chase. The young man with the bow shouted and chased after them. The other 3 young men and women at the 6th level of the Void God Realm also gave chase. Whoosh! The young man with the large bow shot out another terrifying arrow, but it was blocked by Qiu. Boom! At this moment, the young man who was trapped in the dark holy light cage had also blasted open the dark holy light cage and was chasing after Lu Ming and the rest. The 2 sides, one chasing and the other fleeing, quickly went far away. Damn it, we must kill them. At this moment, the 5 young men and women with bows in their hands were all shocked. After a short fight, they realized that the combat strength of Lu Ming and the rest was shockingly high. Lu Ming was only a demigod while Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan were only at 3rd-level Void God Realm. How could they block their attacks with such cultivation bases? Sacred grade divine power. Lu Ming and the rest must have mastered the divine grade divine power. Otherwise, they would not be so powerful. Such a person must be killed. Leaving him alive would only bring disaster. Soon, both parties had covered 100 miles. Holy light escape technique. At that moment, holy light emanated from Xian Yanjin's body, making him look like a holy maiden. Then a pure white halo spread out and enveloped Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, and the other 2. Whoosh! Immediately, their speed skyrocketed and became several times faster than before. They turned into a rainbow light and flew away, disappearing from the sight of the bow-wielding young man and the others. Damn it! The few young men roared. That must be some kind of secret technique to escape. There must be some residual effects from such a fast speed. Chase after them. This time we must kill them. The young man with the large bow said coldly. The 5 young men continued to chase in the direction where Lu Ming and the rest had disappeared. Xian Yanjuan carried Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing and flew for hundreds of thousands of miles before stopping. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his face turned pale. She's injured from using the holy light escape technique. Let's find a safe place first, Xian Yanqing said. Lu Ming nodded and left the place with Xian Yanjuan. Very quickly, they had run another few 100,000 miles. The others couldn't run as fast in the forest because they didn't know when they would be attacked by the plant life forms. However, they had Qiuqiu with them. It could sense the presence of plant life forms and avoid them in advance. Then, they found a hidden valley and rushed in. As soon as they entered the valley, Lu Ming immediately took out a healing pill and fed it to Xian Yanjuan so that she could channel her energy to heal her injuries. Chapter 2664 Lu Ming becomes a god, the sacred son of Floating Light's faction. Huangwu. Lu Ming's eyes flashed with a cold glint. It was obvious that the other party wanted to get rid of him in the forest. This time, it was a close call but not a dangerous one. Breakthrough. I must quickly break through. Lu Ming clenched his fists tightly. This time, it was all thanks to Qiuqiu, Xian Yanqing, and Xian Yanjuan. Xian Yanjuan had an extraordinary background. He risked his injuries and cast a secret escape technique to help them escape. Otherwise, Lu Ming would be in danger on his own. Strength. Lu Ming was in desperate need of strength. There were too many experts in the primeval universe and deities were everywhere. Lu Ming's current ability was too weak. After the previous cultivation, my divine power has strengthened a lot. If it's strengthened a little more, I can try to break through to the martial god realm. Lu Ming pondered. Then, he swallowed a healing elixir and started to heal himself. Previously, he had received an attack from a 7th-level Void God Realm expert and was slightly injured. A few hours later, Lu Ming's injuries were fully healed. In his dantian, a wisp of divine fire was burning brightly. Divine power was constantly overflowing and flowing through his meridians. However, the density of the divine power was not complete. It was still lacking. Then let's give it a shot. Lu Ming took out 2 jade bottles. These 2 jade bottles were filled with spirit-strengthening pills. Lu Ming originally had 2 bottles of spirit-strengthening pills. Each bottle contained 9 pills. He had used a few pills in his previous cultivation and had more than 10 pills left. Xian Yanqing appeared beside Lu Ming in a flash. Lu Ming, go on with your cultivation. It'll protect you, Xian Yanqing said. The moment Lu Ming took out the spirit-strengthening pill, Xian Yanqing immediately understood what Lu Ming was thinking. All right, Lu Ming nodded. His eyes were filled with determination. He took a deep breath and inhaled the dozen or so spirit-strengthening pills. Boom, boom, boom. The effects of the spirit-strengthening pills were too strong. Once they dissolved, they turned into surging energy waves that surged through Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming gathered his energy. His divine fire burned fiercely, and he began to refine the medicinal power frantically. Fortunately, the effect of the spirit-strengthening pill was to increase divine power, so it was not that difficult to refine. If it were any other type of elixir, Lu Ming would be torn apart if he were to consume so many of them at once, no matter how strong his physical body was. The rich medicinal power was continuously refined and transformed into divine power. Lu Ming's divine power was getting stronger and stronger. It was like mercury, flowing in his meridians. This was divine power. Divine power was much more powerful than world power. A wisp of divine power could easily penetrate the power of a world. Back then, if Lu Ming had not comprehended the way of the ruler and mastered the power of the ruler, it would have been impossible for him to fight against a virtual god level with his heavenly emperor level cultivation base. Only a heaven-defying power like the path of domination could allow Lu Ming, who was at the heavenly emperor realm, to fight against virtual gods. Boom, boom, boom. When all the medicinal effects had been refined, the divine energy in Lu Ming's body was already very rich. It flowed continuously in his meridians and returned to the divine fire. That's enough. I'll try to break through to the martial god realm. Lu Ming had an idea. Then the divine fire in his dantian suddenly rose. Originally, the divine fire was only the size of a fist, but now it was growing crazily. Even the divine energy flowing in Lu Ming's meridians seemed to have been ignited and turned into divine fire. And MBSB hoo-hoo. Lu Ming's entire person seemed to be enveloped in a ball of flames. Lu Ming was about to break through to the martial god realm. Once he succeeded, his physical body would become a divine body. Those who had a divine body were gods. 2 days pas said just like that. Boom. A shocking aura suddenly burst out from his body. A pillar of light shot into the sky. The aura soared into the clouds. Between heaven and earth, endless divine qi surged toward Lu Ming. Not good. Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjin's expressions changed. Such a huge commotion would probably attract the attention of others. Devour. At that moment, Lu Ming took out a large number of divine crystals and blasted them. Divine qi surged into Lu Ming's body and was refined into divine power. Boom, boom, boom. The divine fire in Lu Ming's dantian began to grow rapidly. The divine power in his body also became thicker and thicker. Lu Ming absorbed tens of thousands of divine crystals in one go before he stopped. He had reached the first level of the Void God realm. Lu Ming had completely become a god and entered first-level virtual god level, so his combat strength had increased greatly. My battle formula seems to have broken through. As soon as he had a breakthrough in his cultivation, Lu Ming had a feeling. He realized that his battle character formula had also broken through the bottleneck and entered a new realm. Previously, although the battle symbol art could 100% trigger the double combat power, it was very difficult to improve it. Now, Lu Ming felt that he could trigger the battle formula that tripled his combat power. That's right, 3 times the combat power. However, there should be a chance of success if his combat strength was tripled. It was the same as when he had doubled his combat strength in the past. It was impossible to have a 100% success rate. Lu Ming had to continue to comprehend. Let's go, we'll leave this place first. Lu Ming ended his cultivation and stood up. The commotion caused by the breakthrough just now was huge, and he was afraid that it would attract the enemy. Let's go. Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan also nodded. The 3 of them rushed out of the valley and into the depths of the forest. At this moment, there were indeed many people who were alarmed by the commotion caused by Lu Ming's breakthrough, and they came over. The 3 of them ran at top speed, but after a distance, they were still blocked. Brat, let's see where you're going to run. Stop. With a cold shout, 3 young men appeared in front of him, blocking his way. These 3 people were the 3 people who wanted to kill Lu Ming and the other 4. One of them was at the 7th level of the Void God realm, while the other 2 were at the 6th level of the Void God realm. Die, downwind sword slash. The 3 young men charged at Lu Ming at top speed. The 7th tier Void God realm young man swung his saber again, and a terrifying saber light slashed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming waved his hand and Qiuqiu flew out. It turned into a metal ball and collided with the other party. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, and Xian Yinjuan charged at the 2 6th-level Void God level youths. Buzz! Lu Ming's spear swept towards the 6th-level Void God level youth. The moment he attacked, Lu Ming had already activated the double combat power of the battle formula. Boom! There was a loud explosion, and the young man's expression changed drastically. He had a look of disbelief on his face. Then, his body was sent flying by Lu Ming like a cannonball. He crashed into a giant tree with a diameter of 10 meters, and the giant tree was smashed into pieces. The other party was shocked. How did Lu Ming's strength suddenly increase? Kill! Lu Ming let out a long howl and charged towards the man. He had already broken through to the 1st level of the Void God realm, and his divine power was several times stronger than before. He could completely crush a 6th-level Void God realm. When Lu Ming was a demigod, he was able to fight against Huang Wu, who was at the 5th level of the Void God realm. He was able to suppress his opponent with a level 9 low-grade divine artifact. Now that he had broken through to virtual god level, Lu Ming could completely crush 6th-level virtual god level existences. Moreover, he was a genius. In fact, Lu Ming could even fight against a 7th-tier virtual god. One had to know that the higher one's cultivation was, the greater the gap between each level. It was not that easy to cross. Chapter 2665 2 Factions Joining Hands Whoosh. Lu Ming thrust his spear forward. The spear's radiance was dazzling as it charged toward the other party. The other party was shocked. He tried his best to resist, but it was useless. He was sent flying by Lu Ming. Even his divine weapon was sent flying, and his arms were broken. Kill! Then, Lu Ming's long spear swept across and directly blew up the 6th-level Void God level existence, killing him on the spot. You, The other two were shocked. Chi-Chi. At this moment, a ray of light shot towards Lu Ming at a terrifying speed. It was an arrow, a terrifying arrow. Without any hesitation, Lu Ming swept his long spear backward and collided with the arrow. Boom! An intense explosion sounded out as if the sun had exploded, creating shockwaves that spread out in all directions. Buzz! The long spear in Lu Ming's hands trembled continuously. A terrifying force surged through Lu Ming's long spear and charged towards him. Lu Ming's figure drifted backward. He only stopped after he retreated a few hundred meters. The attack power of these arrows is truly astonishing. Lu Ming felt that his arm was a little numb, and he was secretly shocked. "Brat, you can actually block my attack." A shocked voice was heard. In the forest far away, 7 or 8 figures flickered and rushed over. One of them was the young man with the big bow. "Nest, there are so many people." Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. Before, there were only 5 of them, including the young man with the bow. Now there were 5 or 6 more. Some of them had terrifying auras that were not any weaker than the young man with the bow. Needless to say, from the killing intent emanating from the other party, he was also from Huang Wu's sect. Right now, Lu Ming could barely contend against a 7th-level void god, but he could not defeat the other party. The key was that Lu Ming kept activating the battle character formula in an attempt to trigger the tripled combat power, but he kept failing. "Little Qing, let's go!" Lu Ming did not hesitate and rushed towards Xian Yanqing and the rest. Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan had joined forces to defeat the 6th-level ethereal god realm young man and had already suppressed him. Meanwhile, Qiuqiu was locked in a fierce battle with that 7th-level void god realm existence. "Kill!" He rushed to Xian Yanqing's side and stabbed the young man with his spear. The other party was shocked. However, he was already suppressed by Xian Yanqing and Lu Ming. How could he deal with Lu Ming? He was stabbed to death by Lu Ming. "Ah, you're looking for death." 2 people had died in a row. The bow-wielding youth and the rest were furious. He shot another arrow, but it was blocked by Lu Ming's spear. "Let's go!" Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Xian Yanjuan, and Qiuqiu also abandoned their opponents and ran in one direction. "Chase him! We must kill him! Kill this beeb AST-armed! Kill!" Furious roars came from behind them as they charged toward Lu Ming and the rest. "I'm still a little weak." Lu Ming was a little depressed. There were too many people on the other side. If there were only 5 people, they could still fight. But now, the number of people on the other side had doubled. If they were to fight, they would be in danger. The chase and escape covered thousands of miles in the blink of an eye. There was someone in front. Lu Ming's eyes suddenly lit up. If they had met other disciples of the sect, the people from the Floating Light faction would not have been so bold as to attack them in public. Although they were no longer in the sect, the other party would still have some reservations. However, Lu Ming's expression changed at the next moment. Lu Ming recognized one of the people in front of him. One of them was a young man in luxurious clothes from the Tianhong Saint Sun's faction. He had previously asked Lu Ming to meet the young man surnamed Ing with an extremely bad attitude. At that moment, the other party also saw Lu Ming and the rest. "It's this brat." The eyes of the young man in luxurious clothes turned cold. "This brat actually dared to reject the invitation of our Tianhong Saint Sun's faction. He'll be a disaster sooner or later. It's a good time to get rid of him now. Attack!" Immediately, the young man in luxurious clothes and the others rushed toward Lu Ming and the rest. Lu Ming secretly groaned. He didn't expect to meet the young man in luxurious clothes and the others here. From the killing intent they emitted, it went without saying that they wanted to kill him as well. "You want to kill me just because you refused to join the other party's camp." Lu Ming was filled with anger. When his strength increased in the future, he would definitely destroy the Tianhong Saint Sun's and the Transient Light Saint Sun's factions with his own hands. "Brat, die!" A long sword appeared in the hand of the young man in luxurious clothes. He slashed out with a terrifying power. The young man had reached peak 7th level of Ethereal God Realm, which was not far from 8th level of Ethereal God Realm. His power was very shocking. Lu Ming and the rest were unwilling to fight head-on with the other party. Once they were entangled by the other party, they would be in trouble when the powerful enemies behind them caught up and surrounded them. With so many experts, once they joined forces, they would be in great danger. They immediately changed direction and rushed to the right. "If you want to leave, then stay." The young man in luxurious clothes led a few people and chased after Lu Ming and the rest. Behind him, The bow-wielding youth and the others also chased after him. He's from the Floating Light faction. This kid injured Huang Wu, so it's normal for these people to want to kill him. The luxuriously dressed young man's heart moved, and he immediately knew what was going on. Let's join forces and kill this brat. The young man in luxurious clothes sent a message to the bow-wielding young man and the others. All right, the two parties. I'd tee it off and chased after Lu Ming and the rest together. At this moment, a figure appeared in the sky. It was the outer sect deacon of the Tianong faction. The old man's name was Le Zhong. This kid is actually fine. He's really lucky. A cold light flashed in Le Zhong's eyes, and then he looked back. From that direction, a ray of light was approaching at an extreme speed. It was another outer sect deacon. We can't let him ruin this. It'll stop him. He muttered to himself, and then flew to another deacon. Le Zhong, what's going on? I can feel a huge movement here. The deacon who came later said, It's fine. Some disciples are chasing after a few plant life forms. Don't worry, I'm here. Nothing will happen. He laughed. That's good. The deacon who came later did not doubt him. He nodded and left. Lu Ming and the rest ran for another 10,000 miles. They slowed down. When they reached this place, it became more and more remote. However, there were fewer and fewer plants, especially plant life forms. They almost did not encounter any. Suddenly, they discovered that an abyss had appeared in front of them. Blood-red mist was constantly emitting from the abyss, seriously blocking their vision and making it impossible to see what was inside. Let's go in. Lu Ming and the rest did not stop and rushed towards the abyss. In the abyss, there was a blood-red mist that obstructed his vision. This way, he could use the environment here to shake off the other party. However, when they reached the sky above the abyss, their expressions changed drastically. In the abyss, a terrifying gravitational force suddenly acted on their bodies. This gravitational force was too strong, making it difficult for them to fly. They directly fell into the abyss. Chapter 2666. Bloodthirsty plant life form Lu Ming and the rest fell into the abyss like meteors, causing the luxuriously dressed young man, the bow-wielding young man and the rest who were chasing after them to be greatly shocked. They stopped in their tracks. The group landed beside the abyss, their faces solemn. They did not continue forward. This place is very evil. One feel uneasy. The young man in luxurious clothes muttered. Let's surround this place first. If that brat doesn't die, he'll definitely come out, and it won't be too late to kill him then. The young man with the bow said. He felt a little uneasy. In the end, they did not dare to enter the abyss. They decided to stay here and wait for Lu Ming to come out. In fact, they even sent voice transmissions to call for more help. This was because the strength of Lu Ming and the rest made them uneasy. They were too strong. They were simply too strong. Not long after, more and more people from the two factions arrived. There were more than 10 7th-level Void God Realm existences. However, no one was above the 8th level of the Void God Realm. After all, these people had all entered the sect in the last 3,000 years. It was already good enough for them to reach the 7th level of Ethereal God Realm. Lu Zhong naturally saw all of this, but he turned a blind eye to it. In the end, he simply left this place. After all, he was a deacon. If others knew that he deliberately indulged, it would not be good for him. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, and Xian Yinjuan kept falling. Fortunately, the abyss was not very high, only about 1,000 meters deep. Boom, boom, boom. The three of them adjusted their positions and stomped heavily on the ground, producing 3 loud bangs. Then, the three of them started to look around. Lu Ming and the other two could not help but be shocked. At the bottom of the abyss, there were dead trees, rotten grass, and other things piled up together. Suddenly, Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He saw a green flash among a pile of dead wood. He walked over and circulated his divine power to absorb it. A piece of green thing flew out. Wood crystal. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. It was actually a wood crystal, and its energy was rich and powerful. Obviously, its level was not low. There's one here too, Xian Yanqing exclaimed. She also found a piece of wood crystal in a pile of rotten grass. Their eyes were burning with passion. Could it be that many plant life forms had fallen here, and all the wood crystals had fallen here? If that was the case, wouldn't he be rich? Immediately, the three of them flickered and rummaged through the piles of dead wood and rotten grass. As expected, they continued to find more and more wood crystals. Those dead trees and rotten grass were obviously plant life forms. However, for some unknown reason, their essence energy had been lost, and they had turned into dead trees and rotten grass, leaving behind only wood crystals. After a while, they found more than 10 wood crystals. Each of them had abundant energy, which was even more abundant than the wood crystals left by the 5th-level ethereal god realm plant life form they had killed. The plant life forms that left behind these wood crystals were all at least at the 5th level of the void god realm. Imrich, haha, let's continue. The 3 of them were very excited and started to sweep the bottom of the abyss. They did not expect that the bottom of the abyss would be such a treasure land. Moreover, the young man in luxurious clothes and the rest did not chase after them. Lu Ming speculated that the other party probably had some concerns and did not dare to chase after them. This way they could plunder more without worry. Rustle! Suddenly, a rustling sound rang out, causing the expressions of the few people to change. Be careful, there's a living being approaching. Xian Yanjin's expression turned serious as she felt a sense of danger. Lu Ming and Xian Yanking's faces were equally grave. Lu Ming even felt his hair stand on end and his heart clenched. It seems that the wood crystals here are indeed not that easy to get. Lu Ming sighed in his heart. The 3 of them formed a circle and looked around carefully. At this moment, the blood-colored fog in the abyss was even thicker. The rustling sound was getting closer and closer. Whoosh! Whoosh! Suddenly, there was a terrifying whistling sound coming from the ground. A few blood-red rays of light burst out from the ground and stabbed at them. Be careful! Lu Ming shouted in a low voice. A long spear appeared and swept out. Thump! Lu Ming's long spear seemed to have swept across a piece of leather. There was a loud thud, but the red light was not sent flying. Instead, it wrapped around him. It was a tentacle, a blood-red tentacle that looked like the root of a tree. At this moment, Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan also made their moves. Their sword radiances slashed across the blood-red roots, leaving sword marks on them. However, they did not manage to cut them open. These roots were extremely hard. Boom! Lu Ming immediately activated the tripled combat strength. The long spear shook violently and 13 layers of strength burst out. Finally, the root was shaken away. Then, Lu Ming kept his long spear and took out a combat sword. To deal with such roots, the combat sword was more practical. Break! Lu Ming held the sword with both hands and unleashed his combat strength. The purple gold ruler's power burst out from the sword and slashed at one of the roots. Pfft! The root was cut off by Lu Ming. Blood spurted out of the cut root, and the air was filled with blood. Squeak! The roots seemed to be in pain. Not far away, there was a zhi sound. Then the roots retracted. But the next moment, a giant creature appeared from the blood mist. What the hell is this thing? Lu Ming gasped at the sight of the huge object. This was also an ancient tree. Its entire body was blood red, and on its trunk there were many tentacle-like roots that were constantly waving. Its roots were very well developed, and there were at least a few hundred of them. They were also like roots, but also like blood-red poisonous snakes. One look at them would make one's scalp tingle. There was no doubt that it was a plant life form, and an extremely terrifying one at that. This is an extremely rare bloodthirsty plant life form. It specializes in devouring the blood of other plant life forms, even the blood of other living creatures. Be careful, Xian Yanjun reminded. This plant life form. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. When he was in the primordial realm's divine wilderness continent, he had encountered such plant life forms that specialized in devouring the blood of other living creatures. However, they were far from being this powerful. The ancient tree used its roots as legs and slithered toward Lu Ming and the rest, emitting a frightening aura. Whoosh! Whoosh! Then, dozens of blood-red roots swept toward Lu Ming and the other 2 with shocking power. Bang! Qiu flew out and bit down on one of the roots, directly breaking it. Lu Ming and the other 2 also launched their attacks. However, these roots were very hard and powerful. It was very difficult to cut them off. The most shocking thing was that even after they cut off the roots, the other party's roots would quickly heal and attack them again. 3 times the combat strength burst. As Lu Ming attacked, he constantly triggered the battle formula, wanting to trigger the tripled combat power. Boom! After dozens of times, a powerful force emerged in Lu Ming's body. The tripling of combat power had been successfully triggered. Chapter 2667 Jingyu's portrait appears after dozens of triggers. Lu Ming finally successfully triggered the double combat power of the battle character formula. Lu Ming's body exuded a strong fighting spirit. Lu Ming's fighting spirit soared. His combat strength had improved. Pft, pft. The combat sword slashed through the air, and the two blood-red roots were cut in half, blood splattering everywhere. Kill! Lu Ming attacked rapidly, his combat sword slashing out continuously. At this moment, his combat strength had reached its peak in history. A few more tentacles were cut off. Squeak! The sanguine ancient tree seemed to be in pain. Hundreds of its roots danced wildly and shrieked. Then, the hundreds of tentacles wrapped around Lu Ming, trying to strangle him to death and devour his blood. However, Qiuqiu transformed into a semicircular shield and blocked in front of Lu Ming. The roots bombarded Qiuqiu's body. Qiuqiu's body was like mercury. It caved in from the impact and returned to its original state the next moment. Moreover, Qiuqiu was a metallic life form and had no blood at all. The ancient blood-colored tree was completely helpless against Qiuqiu. Dark Holy Light Technique. At this moment, Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan joined forces and activated the Dark Holy Light Technique. Black and white light intertwined to form a dark holy light cage that enveloped the ancient blood-red tree. Good chance, Ball, smash! Lu Ming shouted and pounced on the ancient blood-red tree like a ROC. At the same time, Qiuqiu turned into a huge metal ball and smashed toward the ancient blood-red tree. Squeak! The blood-red ancient tree waved its hundreds of roots wildly, bombarding the dark holy light cage, causing the cage to shake continuously. In addition, blood spikes emerged from the blood-colored ancient tree's body, flying in all directions like a hedgehog. Qiuqiu was the first to pass through the holy light cage and crashed down, sweeping away some blood spikes and blood-colored roots. Lu Ming followed closely behind Qiuqiu and slashed with his sword. Pft! Lu Ming's slash left a wound that was a few meters long and half as deep on the ancient blood-colored tree. Blood gushed out like a spring. The ancient blood-colored tree's aura also rapidly weakened. Again, slash! Lu Ming swung his sword again. This time, the ancient blood-red tree was completely split into two. The blood-colored ancient tree was split in half and fell to the ground. Blood flowed all over the ground, giving off a disgusting smell. Hoo! Lu Ming heaved a long sigh of relief. This ancient blood-red tree was very terrifying. They had to join forces and use all means to kill it. Lu Ming, be careful. Suddenly, Xian Yanqing cried out anxiously. He pounced on Lu Ming and set up a sword screen in front of him. Bang! A particularly thick blood-colored root slammed into the sword curtain in front of Xian Yanqing. The sword curtain collapsed instantly, and Xian Yanqing was thrown back like a kite with a broken string, blood spurting out of his mouth. Little Qing, Lu Ming turned pale with fright. He moved and hugged Xian Yanqing by the waist. Xian Yanqing's face was pale. He had been seriously injured by the attack. Rustle! Rustle! Rustling sounds came from both sides of the abyss. Then, huge creatures appeared in their sight. Ancient blood-colored trees. They were all ancient blood-colored trees. At a glance, there were at least dozens of them. One of them was especially tall, twice as tall as the other blood-colored ancient trees. Its thick roots waved around and made loud sounds. So many. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Xian Yanjuan, and the others felt their scalps go numb. It was already difficult to deal with one blood-colored ancient tree. How could they deal with so many of them? Furthermore, there was a terrifying gravitational pull in this abyss. They couldn't even fly or escape. Don't tell me that I'm going to die here today. Lu Ming had a thought in his mind, and he was very unwilling. Xian Yanjin's body emitted a holy light. She was unwilling to die here as she still had things to do. She was going to risk her life. Squeak! Dozens of blood-colored ancient trees let out ear-piercing screeches. Their roots waved like a group of demons dancing. The scene was terrifying. Buzz! The tallest and thickest blood-colored ancient tree made its move. A blood-colored root as thick as a bucket whipped toward Lu Ming and the group. Break! Xian Yanjuan shouted as holy light filled the air. His entire body seemed to have become one with the sword, turning into a holy sword and slashing at the root. Boom! The sword chi spread and the holy light was destroyed. Xian Yanjuan was sent flying and fell to the ground. Her body trembled and she spat out a mouthful of blood. The giant blood-red ancient tree was too strong for Xian Yanjuan to withstand. Buzz! The thick root continued to lash at them. I'll do it, die! Lu Ming shouted and rushed out. He circulated his ruler's divine power to the maximum. The combat sword in his hand glowed with a dazzling purple-gold light as he slashed at the thick root. However, the result was the same as before. Lu Ming felt a surge of terrifying power surging towards him, and he retreated rapidly. It couldn't be blocked at all. Squeak! Dozens of sanguine ancient trees waved their roots and shrieked continuously. They slowly approached Lu Ming. They were not in a hurry to attack, as if they were toying with Lu Ming and the rest. Dozens of blood-colored ancient trees formed a circle, waving their roots. They were like a cage, completely surrounding Lu Ming and the rest. There was no way to escape. Lu Ming. Xian Yanking's small hand was holding Lu Ming's big hand tightly. Qiu, they can't do anything to you. Wait a moment, you take the opportunity to escape. Lu Ming sent a voice transmission to Qiu. Crack! Crack! Qiu's round body spun around with all its might, looking like it was rejecting the offer. Squeak! At this moment, the largest ancient blood tree shrieked madly, as if it had given its last order. Then all the other ancient blood trees attacked together. Tens of thousands of roots wrapped around Lu Ming and the rest. They were about to be drowned by the endless blood-colored roots. At this moment, the shocking feather portrait in Lu Ming's sea of consciousness moved. It flew out of Lu Ming's sea of consciousness and hovered above Lu Ming's head. It emitted a dazzling purple-gold light, like a light shield, enveloping Lu Ming and the rest. Boom! 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 The tentacles. The light shield, but they were all blocked. Lu Ming was extremely surprised. Jingye's portrait had actually moved at this moment. In the past, Lu Ming had also encountered fatal danger. However, the Jingyu portrait had never moved. Why did it move now? Could it be related to my breakthrough to the ethereal god realm? Lu Ming's heart stirred. Baya had once said that there were layers of restrictions on Jingyu's portrait. It could only be activated when Lu Ming's cultivation had reached a certain level. Perhaps Jingye's portrait only had such a reaction when Lu Ming's cultivation level had broken through to virtual god level. At this moment, the eyes of Jingye's portrait lit up like two stars, and an unparalleled pressure exploded forth. Squeak! The blood-colored ancient trees seemed to be extremely terrified. They screamed and waved their roots, running away. In the blink of an eye, not a single tree was left. Chapter 2668 Heaven and Earth 1000 Dao Art. In the blink of an eye, all the blood-colored ancient trees had disappeared. Lu Ming and the few of them were somewhat dumbfounded. Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan looked at Jingye's portrait in surprise. At that moment, the light on Jingye's portrait dimmed, and it flew back into Lu Ming's consciousness. At the same time, a message emerged from Jingye's portrait. Lu Ming's eyes moved. The information that emerged from Jingye's portrait was a divine art and 2 divine skills. Universe 1000 Dao Scripture, 3 apocalyptic strikes, 9-stage crimson gold armor. The Heaven and Earth 1000 Dao Scripture was a divine technique. The 3 apocalyptic strikes was an offensive divine technique, and the 9-layer crimson gold armor was a defensive divine technique. Other than that, there was no other information. Lu Ming had sworn on his life force origin that he would do something for Jingyu, but he had not revealed any information. Could it be that my cultivation is not high enough, so I didn't reveal any information to prevent myself from dying in vain? Lu Ming had to make such a guess. However, he didn't have time to think about it now. He had to search for wood crystals first. Let's collect the wood crystals first, Lu Ming said. Immediately, they quickly collected wood crystals at the bottom of the abyss. There were so many blood-red ancient trees in the abyss. Obviously, many plant life forms had died under the blood-red ancient trees, leaving only wood crystals, branches, and leaves. The few of them gathered along the side of the abyss. After walking for a few dozen miles, they came to the end of the abyss and saw a huge cave with blood-colored mist constantly spreading out. It was obvious that some of the blood-colored ancient trees were hiding in the cave and did not dare to come out. It seems that these ancient blood-colored trees are really afraid. Lu Ming revealed a smile. Then they went back to the other side of the abyss. After a few dozen miles, they reached the end of the abyss. There was a huge cave here, and the blood-red ancient trees didn't dare to come out. What a great harvest! At the thought of the wood crystals he had collected this time, Lu Ming's face was full of smiles. They had collected a few hundred wood crystals of high quality. It was definitely a big harvest. If they could refine all of them, their cultivation would definitely be greatly improved. Those people are probably waiting up there. Why don't we refine the wood crystal here first, and then kill our way out? Xian Yanking's eyes flashed with cold killing intent. All right, Lu Ming nodded. He also wanted to take a good look at the divine skills and techniques he had just obtained. Immediately, the three of them sat down cross-legged in the middle of the abyss. At this position, if the blood-colored ancient trees were to launch a sneak attack, they would be able to discover them in time and have time to respond. Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan each took out a wood crystal and swallowed it. Qiu, help us observe the surrounding situation. Lu Ming was not in a hurry to refine the wood crystal. He let Qiu protect them first, and then looked at the newly acquired divine techniques and skills in detail. First, Lu Ming looked at the Universe Thousand Tao scripture. Lu Ming focused his mind, and the Universe Thousand Tao scripture became clear in his mind. Lines of words and even pictures appeared in his mind. After a while, Lu Ming finished reading the Universe Thousand Tao scripture. Lu Ming was shocked by the Universe Thousand Tao scripture. The Heaven and Earth Thousand Tao scripture was a mystical technique that specialized in cultivating divine power. Its level of abstrusity had exceeded Lu Ming's expectations. If one cultivated this wondrous technique to its peak, one could directly cultivate ruler divine power. But this was only the foundation. And NBSB, after cultivating a ruler's divine power, one could cultivate other techniques, and the divine power cultivated from other techniques could coexist with a ruler's divine power. And NBSB, the most shocking thing was that other divine techniques did not need to be cultivated to their peak. As long as they could cultivate a wisp of divine power, they did not need to continue cultivating, because that divine power would increase with the increase in ruler divine power. For example, if Lu Ming cultivated the Heaven and Earth Thousand Tao scripture to its peak and then cultivated another divine technique, he could light another divine fire beside the original divine fire. Every time he cultivated a different divine technique, he would be able to light up another divine flame. These divine flames would increase in power as his ruler's divine power increased. Heaven-defying, this was simply heaven-defying. One had to know that an ordinary person could only cultivate one divine fire. According to the records of the Heaven and Earth Thousand Tao scripture, it was possible to cultivate an infinite number of divine flames, as long as one had different divine techniques. Lu Ming was amazed. His heart was burning with Pa-S-Shaun. Such a divine technique was truly heaven-defying. The last paragraph of the Universe Thousand Tao scripture was Jing Yu's annotation. Jing Yu said, Jing Yu had acquired the Universe Myriad Tao art from a forbidden region. Jing Yu had relied on the Universe Myriad Tao art to master hegemon-level divine power. Jing Yu was not like Lu Ming, who had not cultivated any divine techniques and could control the divine power of a god. Start cultivating. Lu Ming could not wait to experience the profoundness of the Universe Thousand Tao scripture. The Universe Thousand Tao scripture had a total of 12 stages. Only by cultivating to the 12th stage would one be able to control hegemon divine power. Lu Ming closed his eyes and began to cultivate according to the instructions. He opened his eyes after a few minutes. That was because he had successfully cultivated the first level, and his speed was astonishing. Continue. Lu Ming continued to cultivate. After a while, Lu Ming had cultivated to the second level, then the third level. In a short half an hour, Lu Ming had cultivated to the 6th level in one go. This was very normal. When one cultivated the Universe Thousand Tao scripture to the 12th stage, one would be able to control ruler's divine power. However, Lu Ming had already controlled the ruler's divine power to begin with. Cultivating the Universe Thousand Tao scripture was naturally like riding a rocket. There was no bottleneck, and he soared all the way. Lu Ming realized that as he cultivated the Universe Thousand Tao scripture more and more, the divine power in his body was also gradually becoming more robust. He was slowly approaching the second level of the Void God realm. Moreover, Lu Ming was even more adept at using the ruler's divine power. He had also discovered many of the mysteries of the ruler's divine power. In the past, Lu Ming had no direction when he cultivated the ruler's divine power. He had to figure it out on his own and comprehend Jing Yu's portrait, moving forward in a blur. Now, with the Heaven and Earth Thousand Tao scripture, Lu Ming had a direction, and a path. This way, he could truly unleash some of the mysteries of the ruler's strength. Continue. Lu Ming buried himself in cultivation. Towards the end of his cultivation, his progress slowed down slightly. However, 3 days later, Lu Ming had still cultivated the universe thousand Tao scripture to the highest level, the 12th stage. Boom! When Lu Ming had cultivated the universe thousand Tao scripture to the 12th stage, the divine fire burned fiercely in his dantian, and his body grew bigger. The divine power in his body surged and became much stronger. He had broken through. His cultivation had broken through to the second level of the void god realm. Chapter 2669 Ninefold Divine Skill. He didn't refine divine crystals, or wood crystals. He only cultivated the universe thousand Tao scripture to the 12th level, and his cultivation had a breakthrough. Moreover, Lu Ming felt that he could use the ruler's divine power more easily than before. According to the heaven and earth thousand Tao scripture, I've already reached the 12th level. I can practice other divine techniques and light another divine fire near the original divine fire. Unfortunately, there are no other divine techniques. Lu Ming sighed. At the same time, he began to think about how to get a few divine techniques to cultivate after he returned to the sect. There were different levels of divine techniques. They were divided into king grade, saint grade, and divine grade wondrous techniques. A king grade wondrous technique could be cultivated to king grade divine power when cultivated to its peak. When a divine grade technique was cultivated to its peak, it could be cultivated to divine grade divine power. As for divine grade divine arts and wondrous techniques, one would be able to cultivate divine grade divine power when they were cultivated to the peak. The higher the level, the higher the value. Each of the Qin Heaven 13 clans had a divine grade technique. However, each of them was a sect's treasure. Only the true core figures had the right to cultivate it. The 3 overlord forces all had divine grade divine skills. In addition, as the head of the top 10 sects, it was said that the Kong Xian sect had several divine grade techniques. The divine grade and divine grade techniques were too precious. Naturally, Lu Ming could not get his hands on them now. However, the king grade techniques were not so precious. It was still possible for him to get them. At the very least, in a powerful faction like the Qin Heavenly 13 clans, there should still be quite a few king grade divine arts and wondrous techniques. Although it was only at the king grade, if Lu Ming cultivated and ignited one more divine fire, his abilities would definitely be stronger. The key was that the heaven and earth thousand Tao scripture was too mysterious. Lu Ming did not need to cultivate other divine techniques to the peak. He only needed to cultivate a wisp of divine power. Under the drive of the heaven and earth thousand Tao scripture, he would naturally be able to achieve the corresponding level of divine power. Boom! Boom! At this moment, 2 powerful auras emanated from Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan. The 2 of them had broken through. The speed of refining the wood crystals was too fast. After a few days of refining, their cultivation had directly broken through from the 3rd level of the void god realm to the 4th level. Soon, the 2 of them calmed down. However, there were still a lot of wood crystals left. The 2 of them continued to refine. Let's take a look at the other 2 godly skills. Lu Ming was looking forward to it. He was not in a hurry to refine the wood crystal and improve his cultivation. He had been making consecutive breakthroughs recently, so he had to stop and stabilize his cultivation. Otherwise, it was easy for his foundation to become unstable. He was different from Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan. Xian Yinjuan had merged her previous life with this life, which meant that she was reborn from her previous life. Her cultivation base was far higher than her current cultivation base. As long as she had a large amount of resources, her cultivation base could improve quickly. Xian Yanqing had devoured her past life in this life, but she still inherited all the memories of her past life, even though her personality and her will were all from this life. However, she had inherited the memories of her previous life. Her vision and martial will were still very high. Although they were not as good as Xian Yanjin's, they were still extraordinary. Therefore, even if she improved quickly, her realm would not be unstable. Next, Lu Ming looked through the 2 divine skills in detail. Ninefold divine skill. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. The 2 divine skills were both ninefold divine skills, which meant that these 2 divine skills could be cultivated to the 9th fold. Ninefold divine skills were extremely rare and precious. The more one cultivated, the more powerful they would be. People like the ancestor of technique, Kong Ji, and Situ Haonan only had 1 triple divine skill. This was a complete godly skill, not an incomplete godly skill. It was much more powerful. The 9-stage crimson gold armor was a defensive divine skill. After successfully cultivating it, a crimson gold battle armor would form on the surface of one's body, and its defensive power would be shocking. The higher the cultivation, the stronger the defense and even the powerful rebound force. If it was cultivated to the 9th level, its power would be unimaginable. 3 apocalyptic strikes, an attack-type divine skill, with a total of 3 moves. Break the sky, slash the moon, and explode the stars. Of the 3 forms, each was stronger than the previous, but also more difficult to master. At the first stage, one could use the SPAC piercing. Only after cultivating it to the 4th level would he be able to unleash the power of moon splitting. As for the supernova, he could only use it after he had cultivated it to the 7th level. Can I cultivate now? Lu Ming's eyes flickered. Theoretically, one had to be at least at peak Void God realm to be able to use the full power of the skill. This was because using a divine skill consumed an astonishing amount of divine power. However, Lu Ming controlled a god's divine power. It could not be compared to other divine powers. It was very strong and might be able to exert some power. Since I can't raise my cultivation now, I'll just cultivate for a while. Lu Ming made his decision and started to study the 3 apocalyptic strikes. There was no doubt that the divine skill was very mysterious. Fortunately, Lu Ming had previously cultivated an incomplete divine skill and had cultivated it to a very high level. It would be easier for him. Even so, Lu Ming spent a full half a month before he finally learned the basics of the 3 apocalyptic strikes. The 3 apocalyptic strikes was a simple attack technique that could be used with many weapons, such as swords, sabers, spears, axes, and so on. Lu Ming took out his long spear and quickly circulated his divine power. His entire person became sharp. Whoosh! The long spear suddenly thrust forward. A spear light pierced through his body and blasted toward the stone wall on one side of the abyss. Pft! Like a long spear piercing into tofu, a small hole appeared in the stone wall, so deep that the bottom could not be seen. What a powerful might! Lu Ming was pleasantly surprised. However, he pulled a long face immediately because he felt that the divine energy in his body was almost exhausted. Using a divine skill really consumed too much divine power. Although he controlled rulers' divine power, he was only at the 2nd level of the Void God realm. It was still too difficult for him to use a divine skill. If other people did not control divine-grade divine power, and their cultivation was only at the 2nd level of the Void God realm, they would not be able to use divine skills at all. Let's recover first. Lu Ming walked to the side and took out some divine crystals. He started to absorb the divine qi from the divine crystals to recover his divine energy. Just as he recovered a little, Lu Ming felt Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjin's auras expand. He was about to break through again. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. In the past half a month, Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan had refined most of the wood crystals that were given to them. They finally began to break through again. Soon they successfully broke through, and their auras stabilized. 5th level Void God realm. Such a breakthrough speed was truly shocking. How long had it been since they arrived in this forest? This forest is really a blessing. Lu Ming smiled. This was a benefit for the new disciples. As long as they had the strength and could get enough wood crystals, their strength would soar in a short time. Lu Ming continued to consume divine crystals. Soon, his divine power was restored to its peak. Now, let's go up, Xian Yanqing said as he walked over. I also have the same intention. Lu Ming's eyes flashed with a cold glint. Chapter 2670 Counterattack. Now that their strength had skyrocketed, it was time for them to settle the score. Lu Ming hoped that the young man in luxurious clothes and the rest were still up there. However, the gravity in this abyss was very strong. They couldn't fly up directly, so they could only climb up along the wall. Above the abyss, the young man in luxurious clothes, the young man with the big bow, and the others were still waiting. Humph, it's been so many days, but I haven't seen them come up. I guess they're dead down there. Someone sneered. This abyss feels extremely evil and dangerous. I think they've all died down there. Let's go, another person said. Time was precious. They could only stay in the forest for 3 months. Now they had been waiting here for more than 20 days, and their hearts were bleeding. I can't afford to waste it. Wait for 3 more days. If they still haven't come out after 3 days, well, leave. The young man in luxurious clothes said. Guys, look. There's someone there. Suddenly, someone shouted and pointed to the edge of the abyss. Everyone looked over and saw a few people climbing up from the edge of the abyss. They were Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, and Xian Yanjuan. It's that brat. They're still alive. The eyes of the young man with the bow turned cold. I didn't die, but am dead now, the young man in luxurious clothes said coldly. His powerful and cold aura locked onto Lu Ming and the other two. They're still here, and the number of people has increased by quite a bit. Lu Ming's eyes swept across the area, cold, killing intent flickering in them. He pressed his arm down and jumped into the abyss. Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan emerged from the abyss and stood beside Lu Ming. Finally, you can't hold it in anymore. It's good that we didn't leave. Hee kid, this is fate. You're destined to die. The young man in luxurious clothes said ferociously. A long sword appeared in his hand. It was extremely sharp. Divine power surged as he stepped toward Lu Ming. You're right. Fortunately, you didn't leave. Otherwise, I would have gone to find you. The corners of Lu Ming's lips curled up slightly. A long spear appeared in his hands. If you still want to resist, I'll kill you in 3 moves, die. The young man in luxurious clothes shouted coldly. His figure burst out, and the terrifying sword light was like a bolt of lightning, heading towards Lu Ming. Buzz! Lu Ming fired a shot. The moment he attacked, Lu Ming activated the double combat power of the battle formula. The long spear was like a furious dragon, bringing with it an endless gale that swept towards the young man in luxurious clothes. Boom! There was a terrifying explosion, and the young man's sword radiance collapsed. Lu Ming's long spear struck the young man's long sword. The terrifying force bent his long sword, and the violent force bombarded the young man's body. Kacha! The sound of bones breaking came from the young man's body. Half of his body exploded, and he was sent flying like a cannonball. He crashed into a 6th-level Void God Realm young man, who vomited blood and was sent flying with him. What? Everyone on the other side was dumbfounded. One move. In just one move, the young man in luxurious clothes was defeated and seriously injured. How was that possible? More than 20 days ago, many people had fought with Lu Ming. Lu Ming was not that powerful, especially the young man with the big bow. He was so scared that he almost died. He felt it the most. When he first came to the forest and attacked Lu Ming's ability was far from being that strong. He was not his match at all. In the end, Lu Ming managed to escape the first time. The second time they met, Lu Ming's abilities had increased by a huge margin. Now Lu Ming's abilities had increased by a huge margin. Such an improvement speed was too shocking. Kill! After severely injuring the young man in luxurious clothes with one move, Lu Ming let out a long howl. He became one with the spear and charged at his opponent like a bolt of lightning. At the same time, Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan also attacked each other. Boom! Lu Ming swept his spear. The terrifying spear ray was like a mountain range, pressing down on the few young men. Bang! Bang! Some of the young men were at 5th level and 6th level Void God Realm. They were whipped by Lu Ming and exploded in the air. Their flesh, blood, and bones flew everywhere. The scene was extremely terrifying. Join hands, and kill him. The young man with the bow shouted. There were around 30 of them, and more than 10 of them were at the 7th level of the Void God Realm. At this moment, a few Nihility God Stage 7 cultivators charged towards Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan. Die! Xian Yanjuan shouted coldly. His body was filled with holy light as he slashed out a sword of holy light with a mysterious trajectory. Pfft! A 7th level Void God Realm young man was killed by Xian Yanjuan without any resistance. At the same time, the other one, Xian Yanqing, had also killed a youth at the 7th level of the Void God Realm. Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan's cultivation had broken through 2 levels, reaching the 5th level of the Void God Realm. The two of them didn't lack suitable divine skills, and their battle techniques were even more exquisite. As their cultivation base increased, their strength would also increase. If they were weak and had weak divine power, they would not be able to use many of their techniques. The stronger they were, the more techniques they would have. At this moment, it wasn't hard for them to kill a 7th level Ethereal God Realm Heaven's favorite. To Lu Ming, it was not difficult. When Lu Ming was at 1st stage Virtual God Realm, the activation of the battle formula doubled his combat strength, and he was able to fight against a 7th stage Virtual God. After that, he cultivated the Heaven and Earth Thousand Tao scripture, and his use of ruler divine power became stronger. His cultivation had also reached the 2nd level of the ethereal god realm, so he could easily deal with those at the 7th level. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, more than 10 attacks were aimed at Lu Ming. "My lord, die!" Lu Ming shouted and circulated his god's divine power. Instantly, when the attacks approached Lu Ming, they seemed to be controlled. They all deviated from their trajectories and rushed past Lu Ming. What? How did this happen? Chief Sovereign's divine power. The divine power. He controls Chief Sovereign's divine power. Someone shouted. Everyone was shocked. God's divine energy. Lu Ming had actually mastered God's divine energy. This was divine-grade divine energy. As far as they knew, no one in the younger generation of the Kong-Xian sect had mastered divine-grade divine power. Only the 3 overlord forces had peerless geniuses who could master divine-grade divine power. Monstrous, a peerless monstrous talent. Kill. Lu Ming would not let go of this opportunity. He thrust his long spear forward. Pft, pft. In an instant, Lu Ming had killed 5 to 6 paragons with his spear. There was even a 7th-level ethereal god realm heaven's favorite. Let's go quickly. We must report this news. This person controls divine-grade divine power. He will definitely become the saint's enemy in the future. We must let the saint know. The bow-wielding young man and the others wanted to retreat. Today, none of you shall think of leaving, Lu Ming said coldly. His killing intent surged like a tide, like a god of death, and he charged towards these people. At the same time, he also released Qiuqiu to restrain the enemy. Chapter 2671 Kill them. All Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan also began to kill mercilessly. The other party would find it difficult to withstand their attacks. One by one, they were killed and left here forever. Demons. You're all demons. You recklessly killed your fellow disciples. You violated the sect rules. You'll be punished. The remaining people shouted. Lu Ming sneered. Previously, these people had threatened to kill them, and Lu Ming and the rest had almost died at their hands. Now, he wanted to use the sect rules to pressure them. Where did the sect rules go when they were chasing after Lu Ming and the rest? What a joke. Bang! Lu Ming showed no mercy. He waved his long spear and sent a 7th-level Void God Realm expert flying. He was severely injured and on the verge of death. In the blink of an eye, there were only 6 or 7 people left from the 30-odd people. They were all at the 7th level of the Void God Realm. Let's split up and escape. The young man with the big bow shouted in horror and shot an arrow at Lu Ming. An arrow was shot at Lu Ming, but was flicked away by Lu Ming's spear. Stay here, Lu Ming shouted. At that moment, a powerful force suddenly burst out from his body. The battle formula tripled his combat power and was successfully triggered. This caused Lu Ming's abilities to soar again. Buzz! Lu Ming's figure burst out and thrust his spear. A 7th-level Void God Realm youth was shocked and tried his best to block it. However, how could he block it? He was directly penetrated by Lu Ming's spear. Then, the spear trembled and the person was torn to pieces. Buzz! Lu Ming took advantage of the situation and killed another 7th-level Void God-level youth. At the same time, Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan had killed another person each. The other party only had 3 people left. Now it's your turn. Lu Ming rapidly approached the young man with the large bow. The young man with the large bow was almost scared to death. He kept drawing the bow and shot arrows at Lu Ming, but they were easily deflected by Lu Ming. The next moment, Lu Ming threw the long spear. The level 9 low-grade divine artifact level spear turned into a bolt of lightning and pierced through the bow-wielding youth, nailing him to an ancient tree. Ah! The other party was not dead yet, and he let out a shrill scream. Lu Ming, go ahead and kill him. The transient light holy sun will avenge me. Your strength is not worth mentioning in the eyes of the transient light holy sun. No, any expert from my transient light faction can kill you and your woman. The young man with the bow knew that he was going to die, so he cursed madly before he died. If that sacred sun of reflection offends me, I'll kill him sooner or later. Rest in peace, Lu Ming said coldly. He struck out with his palm and killed the other party. Lu Ming pulled out the long spear and returned to the original battlefield. Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan had caught up with the remaining 2 young men and killed them in no time. Buzz! Lu Ming's figure moved and appeared beside a young man. This young man was the one in luxurious clothes. The young man in luxurious clothes was the first to attack Lu Ming. He was severely injured by Lu Ming's spear and half of his body was broken. He lay on the ground, unable to move. He had witnessed the entire scene just now. At this moment, he was so scared that he peed his pants. When he first met Lu Ming was just a demigod ant, and he did not take him seriously at all. He had never expected Lu Ming to be so terrifying. "Don't kill me, don't kill me. As long as you spare my dog life, I'll obey your every order from now on. I'll be your dog. Please spare me." The young man in luxurious clothes shouted in fear. "I don't need a dog. You can go in peace," Lu Ming said coldly. He swung his spear and ended the person. "Let's hurry and leave this place," Lu Ming said after collecting everyone's storage rings. There was a huge commotion here just now. If the others found out that Lu Ming and the rest had killed more than 30 disciples, they would definitely be in trouble. Their figures flashed and they left the place. A moment after Lu Ming and the rest disappeared, a rainbow light flashed in the sky and a figure appeared. This figure was the outer sect deacon, Le Zhong. How did this happen? Lu Zhong's eyes widened in disbelief when he saw the corpses all over the ground. What's going on? This wound was a sword wound and a gunshot wound. He was killed by someone. Who is it? Who is it? Lu Zhong roared, his eyes extremely ferocious. Could it be Lu Ming, that kid? He thought of Lu Ming in his joy. That was because the young man in luxurious clothes and the rest had been waiting here all along to block Lu Ming. He knew all of this. However, were Lu Ming and the few of them that powerful? Damned bastard, I won't let this matter rest. Lu Zhong gave a low growl, and in a flash, he left the place. The days that followed were rather peaceful. With Qiuqiu's help, Lu Ming and the rest obtained many wood crystals in the forest. Although it couldn't be compared to the abyss, it was still pretty good. The 3-month period was almost up. Lu Ming and the other two headed out of the forest. In the forest, figures kept rushing out and came to the outside of the forest. Outside, the outer sect elder stood in the air. It was obvious that he had been waiting here. "Haha, how's your harvest this time?" "Not bad. Nest, you've actually broken through one level." Many people met and chatted with each other. Many people had a smile on their faces. This time, most of them had a good harvest. Killing plant life forms and obtaining wood crystals could quickly increase one's cultivation. There were even many people who directly broke through one level of cultivation, which saved many years of time. Not long after, almost all the disciples who went in came out. However, the number of people was much smaller. When they entered, there were more than 600 people, but now there were only about 500 people. There were about 100 fewer people. It was obvious that these people had all fallen in the forest and become nutrients for the plant life. At this moment, 4 rainbow lights flew out from the forest. It was the 4 outer sect deacons. They were the rear guards and had just come out. As soon as Le Zhong came out, his gaze swept toward Lu Ming. A powerful aura suddenly pressed down on Lu Ming. Boom! Lu Ming felt as if he had been crushed by a divine mountain. His body trembled violently and he retreated continuously. A stream of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. "What are you doing?" Xian Yanqing shouted and stood beside Lu Ming. The others, including the outer sect elders and the 3 outer sect deacons, also looked at Le Zhong in surprise. "Brat, you've harmed your fellow disciples with such ruthless methods. Today I'll clean up my sect and kill you." He shouted in joy and his killing intent was cold. Without any explanation, he threw a palm at Lu Ming, not giving him a chance to defend himself. A terrifying palm print pressed toward Lu Ming, causing his expression to change drastically. Lu Zhong's cultivation had definitely reached true god level, and he might even be an advanced true god. It was too terrifying. Lu Ming could not resist at all. The difference in cultivation was too great. It was not something that talent could make up for. However, at this moment, a force came from the side and blocked Le Zhong's attack. Chapter 2672 Mysterious Visitor. What's going on? The outer sect elder said with a frown. "Elder, this kid is insane. He killed dozens of fellow disciples in the forest. He deserves to die 10,000 times. Le Zhong said coldly. What? Many people were shocked by his words. Was it true that Lu Ming had killed dozens of his fellow disciples? You're slandering me. Lu Ming wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and stepped forward. His eyes were bright as he stared at Le Zhong and said, Deacon Le Zhong, do you have any evidence that I killed my fellow disciple? Those disciples were clearly killed by you. You still dare to quibble? Le Zhong said coldly. What excuse? I'm asking you, do you have evidence? Did you see it with your green eyes, or did you have other witnesses? Lu Ming said loudly. He was speechless for a moment. Although he was certain that he was killed by Lu Ming and the rest, how could he have any evidence? That means there's no evidence. Lu Ming raised his voice and said, since there's no evidence, why did Deacon Lezhong say that I killed him? Why didn't he die in the hands of a plant life form? Why didn't he die in the hands of others? Lu Ming asked a few questions in a row, pressing on step by step. You still dare to quibble? He roared in the midst of the music like a furious lion and glared at Lu Ming. He found it hard to defend himself. Was he supposed to say that the disciples who had died were killed because they had surrounded Lu Ming and that Lu Ming was the murderer? However, could he say that? The few of us have been honestly hunting for plant life in the forest, but we didn't expect to be slandered like this. Elder Lezhong, I want to know why? Did Huang Wu ask you to slander me? Or are you from the Tianhong sect? I did offend both of them. Lu Ming shouted loudly, his voice spreading throughout the entire venue. Oh, I understand. I understand now. Lu Ming has offended the Tianhong faction, and Deacon Lezhong is from the Tianhong faction. Many people's hearts moved, and they had an expression of sudden realization. Lezhong was at a loss for words after being questioned by Lu Ming. He definitely did not have any evidence. Moreover, Lu Ming had offended the Tianhong faction, and Lezhong happened to be a member of the Tianhong faction. Many people thought that Lezhong was taking the opportunity to take revenge and slander Lu Ming. This kid, Lezhong gritted his teeth and his heart was burning with anger, but he was helpless. This old fellow is indeed from Huang Wu's side, or Tianhong's faction. Perhaps those people who tried to kill me earlier were also intentionally allowed to do so by this old fellow. Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. He was just making things up to test the other party. Seeing that the other party did not say anything, he knew that he had guessed correctly. All right, it seems like this is a misunderstanding. Deacon Lezhong, in the future, you should not be so impulsive. Go back. The outer sect elder spoke. He had a rough idea in his heart, but this was a dispute between factions. He didn't want to interfere too much, so he just tried to smooth things over. With a wave of his hand, a divine combat sword appeared and expanded rapidly. He landed on the combat sword first. Lezhong cast a very cold glance at Lu Ming, and his eyes landed on his combat sword. Then, the others all landed on their swords. The swords turned into a rainbow light and disappeared. Soon, they returned to the outer gate area. After returning, Lu Ming parted ways with Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan. He returned to his room and went into seclusion to cultivate. He had many things to do next. On one side, he had to temper his shun power and strengthen his foundation. On the other, he had to comprehend the battle character. The word battle in his sea of consciousness was simply unfathomable. Lu Ming felt that up until now, he had only comprehended the surface of it. There was endless potential waiting for him to unearth. Now, if he wanted to trigger the tripled combat power, the chance was 1 in a few dozen. Only when his understanding of the battle formula deepened would the chances of this increase. Moreover, Lu Ming still had to cultivate the 3 apocalyptic strikes and the 9-layered crimson gold armor. He felt that he did not have enough time. Lu Ming spent the rest of the time fully focused on cultivation. Huang Wu's courtyard. Damn it, damn BVS T-Bail RBD. Huang Wu roared. This time, he had invited many experts from the Floating Light faction to kill Lu Ming in the forest. However, he had received news that those experts were all dead. These people went to hunt Lu Ming together, but they all died at the same time. It could not be a coincidence. Huang Wu suspected that Lu Ming was the one who did it. However, was Lu Ming that powerful? Senior brother Huang Wu, that kid Lu Ming is very strange. Should we consult senior brother Huang Wen? One of the lackeys said carefully. My big brother has been in closed-door cultivation recently. Let's wait for him to come out first. That kid, let him live for a while longer, Huang Wu said coldly. At the same time, the people from the Tianhong sect were also furious. They brought back the news happily, suspecting that the young man in luxurious clothes and the rest from the Tianhong sect had died at Lu Ming's hands. A storm was brewing. In the outer sect area, where the female disciples lived, the mountains and rivers here were verdant, and there were countless strange peaks. Xian Yanjin's figure flickered in a hidden valley. Runes emerged from his hand and landed on the ground. A mysterious formation was faintly visible on the ground. After a few hours, Xian Yinjuan finally stopped. He let out a sigh of relief and made a hand seal. With a light shout, the formation glowed and condensed into a tiny ray of light. It shot into the sky and disappeared in an instant. The speed was unimaginable. I hope you'll receive it. Staying here is too slow. It's not a long-term solution, Xian Yinjuan murmured. Then he sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, a month had passed. One day, Xian Yinjuan suddenly opened his eyes. The SPAC in front of Xian Yinjuan rippled, and an old man in a gray robe suddenly appeared. Uncle Hong, Xian Yinjuan exclaimed in surprise when he saw the gray-robed elder. The gray-robed old man's eyes seemed to have stars in them as he studied Xian Yinjuan. His aged face was filled with joy. Big. Young miss, it's you, it's really you. You've successfully reincarnated? The gray-robed elder was so excited that his voice started to tremble. After reincarnating for so many years, I've succeeded by luck, Xian Yinjuan said. She felt much more relaxed after seeing the old man in gray. Thank God, thank God. The gray-robed old man sighed with tears in his eyes. He looked at Xian Yinjuan lovingly and said after a while, I wonder how the second young lady is doing. She's also nearby. I'll call her over, Xian Yinjuan said. He then took out a jade voice transmission talisman and sent a message to Xian Yanqing. Second miss is here too? Could it be that the second lady has also successfully reincarnated? The gray-robed elder was even more excited. She said it was a success, so it's a success, but it's not a complete success. Xian Yinjuan said. It can't be considered a complete success? What's going on? The gray-robed elder asked. Her obsession in this life is too strong, so she swallowed her previous life in this life. Her will is now in this life. She's not completely Tang Qing anymore. Xian Yinjuan sighed. Chapter 2673 The Tang family. The old man's expression changed when he heard Xian Yanjin's words. After a long while, he sighed. Reincarnation has countless risks. If you can't awaken, you'll be trapped in reincarnation forever until you die. It's already very fortunate that the second young lady has awakened. At least, she still has the memories of her previous life. The gray-robed old man sighed. He had lived for a long time and had seen many people reincarnate. However, only 1 in 10,000 people could truly be reincarnated and awaken. Most of them had sunk into eternal oblivion. There were also many people like Xian Yanqing who were too obsessed with this life and eventually decided to take control of it. This way, the reincarnation was only half successful. It was rare to see someone like Xian Yinjuan who had fully awakened. Moreover, she has a family now. She has a son and a granddaughter. Then, Xian Yinjuan told him about Xian Yanqing and Lu Ming's situation. The two of them chatted as they waited. Not long after, a figure floated in. It was Xian Yanqing. You are. When Xian Yanqing saw the gray-robed old man, her delicate body trembled and her face turned pale. Hong Yang pays his respects to the second young lady. The gray-robed old man bowed to Xian Yanqing. Hong, Xian Yanqing said softly. He originally wanted to call him Uncle Hong, but after a moment of silence, he changed his words. Senior, you don't have to be so polite. My name is Xian Yanqing now, not Tang Qing. You are the reincarnation of the second young lattice soul. No matter which lifetime you are in control of, you are the second young lady in my heart. The gray-robed elder bowed. Senior, why have you come? Xian Yanqing said. Xian Yanqing, we should leave. This is not a place for us to stay. Xian Yinjuan said. Leave? No, I want leave. Xian Yanqing shook his head, his expression firm. I'm not leaving, Xian Yanqing. Our cultivation is too slow here. Only by leaving can we improve quickly. Xian Yinjuan said. If my cultivation is slow, then it'll just slowly improve. Xian Yanqing continued to shake his head. Xian Yanqing, are you really going to abandon the Tang family just like that? In your past life, you were the second miss of the Tang family, Tang Qing. Don't forget that they are in danger now. Xian Yanjin's voice grew louder. Xian Yanqing frowned. There seemed to be some struggle between his brows, but he did not speak. Moreover, there are some things that will only be difficult if the two of us work together. Moreover, Father's whereabouts are currently unknown. Only if we work together can we find him. Only if we find Father will we have hope. Do you understand? Xian Yanjin's voice grew louder as he pressed on. The father she was referring to was naturally not Xie Qitian from the Xie family of the Divine Wilderness continent, but her father from her previous life. I am Xian Yanqing. The struggle between Xian Yanqing's brows became more intense. Finally, he shouted as if he wanted to strengthen his belief. I know that you are Xian Yanqing. I also know that you can't bear to leave Lu Ming, Lu Shenhuang, and Lu Qi. However, if you stay, you will only bring harm to them. You should know very well how terrifying and powerful our enemies are. You are Tang Qing's soul. Just based on this, you will be discovered by them sooner or later. The Qin Heaven Star Zone is located in a remote area. It's still all right. However, with Lu Ming's talent, do you think he will stay in the Qin Heaven Star Zone forever? With his talent, he will leave the Qin Heaven Star region sooner or later. At that time, if you come into contact with those people, you're ident. Tai will be discovered sooner or later. You're the daughter of Taboo. They won't let you off. They won't let Lu Ming and the rest off either. No matter how talented Lu Ming is, he won't be able to fight back when facing those people. I believe you're very clear about this. Otherwise, why didn't you dare to tell Lu Ming anything? You're afraid of implicating them. Xian Yanjuan said as he stared into Xian Yanqing's eyes. Xian Yanqing's eyes became fluid teared. Xian Yanqing, I've said everything I need to say. It's up to you to decide. Today's separation doesn't mean that you'll never see each other again. If you find father, you'll still see each other. Xian Yanjuan said. All right, I'll go with you. After some struggle, Xian Yanqing finally spoke again, his eyes filled with determination. Xian Yanjuan smiled. But I have to go and say goodbye to Lu Ming. Xian Yanqing said. I'll go with you. Xian Yanjuan said. I'll send you there. Just point me to the location. The gray-robed elder said. Then, he waved his hand and disappeared with Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan. In the next moment, they reappeared in Lu Ming's courtyard. Lu Ming sensed Xian Yanqing and the rest the moment they appeared. Although he was cultivating, he had left a trace of spiritual sense to keep an eye on his surroundings. Shao Qing and Xian Yanjuan, what's the matter? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He ended his cultivation and walked out of the room. When Lu Ming walked out of the room and his gaze fell on the gray-robed elder, his pupils could not help but shrink. He had never thought that there would be a third person. Just now, he only sensed Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjin's auras. He didn't sense the gray-robed elder's aura at all. It was as if he was just air. Unfathomable. This was Lu Ming's first impression of the gray-robed elder. Lu Ming, let me introduce you. This is Uncle Hong. Xian Yanjuan was the first to speak. Uncle Hong. Lu Ming was slightly stunned. Xian Yanjuan called him Uncle Hong so affectionately, so he must be very close to him. This was the primal universe, so this elder naturally couldn't be from the primordial realm's divine wilderness continent Xia family. It went without saying that this person was someone Xian Yanjuan knew in his previous life. Lu Ming of the junior generation greets the senior. Lu Ming cupped his fists and said, You're the second young lattice husband in this life. You're indeed a dragon among men. The gray-robed elder sized Lu Ming up, as if he could see through all of Lu Ming's secrets. He continued, All right, you guys continue chatting. I'll leave first. With that, the gray-robed elder's body disappeared. Lu Ming could not even tell how he disappeared. Lu Ming. Xian Yanqing walked to Lu Ming's side and muttered to himself, I'm going to leave. What? Lu Ming's heart trembled and his expression changed slightly. Leave? Little Qing, what do you mean by this? There are some things that I need to do. But don't worry, I'll be back soon. Xian Yanqing said. Where are you going? I'll go with you. Lu Ming said. Lu Ming, I'm afraid you can't help with this. Xian Yanjuan said. What's the matter? Lu Ming frowned and asked. To tell you the truth, Xian Yanqing and I were both from the Tang family in our previous lives. However, the Tang family is facing a huge crisis. My father has gone missing, and we need Xian Yanqing and me to find him. You are too weak to help. Moreover, our cultivation will only improve rapidly after we leave. It's only a matter of time before we return to our previous lives. We can't unleash our potential here, Xian Yanjuan said. Chapter 2674 Virtual God Ranking List Expert, Great Danger? Then I can't let little Qing go alone. Lu Ming's expression changed. Lu Ming, don't worry. I'll be very safe when I go to that place. Xian Yanqing said. That's right. Lu Ming, let me tell you, if Xian Yanqing stays by your side, he will be in real danger. It's easy for the enemy to sense him. When that happens, not only will Xian Yanqing be in danger, but you, Lu Shenhuang, Lu Qi, and your family will all be in danger. Xian Yanjuan said. For a moment, Lu Ming was speechless. He understood that Xian Yanqing had left most likely for their safety. He wasn't afraid of himself, but he had to consider for Lu Shenhuang and the rest. Strength, it's still strength. Lu Ming could not help but clench his fists. After coming to the desolate universe, he deeply felt that he was too weak. Lu Ming, don't worry. Our separation is only temporary. We'll meet again sooner or later, Xian Yanqing said as he held Lu Ming's hand. Lu Ming was silent and did not speak. At this time, the SPAC flickered, and the gray-robed elder's figure reappeared. Lu Ming, this is for you. The gray-robed elder waved his hand, and a jade talisman flew towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming reached out and took it. The address we're going to is inside, but I've placed a seal on it. One day, when your cultivation Serpa SSES that of a god king, you'll be able to break the seal. At that time, you can partake. I peep aid in everything, the gray-robed elder said. Serpa sing the god king level. Lu Ming's heart trembled. Lu Ming had never heard of the realm above the king of gods. According to what he knew, the strongest experts in the Qin heaven starfield were god kings. He had never heard of an existence that transcended God King. Lu Ming, take care. We will meet again very soon. I believe in you. Xian Yanqing spoke softly, then pressed his red lips against Lu Ming's. After a long time, their lips parted. Little Qing, don't worry. It won't take me too long to reach the God King realm. I'll definitely reach that realm. When that time comes, I'll come and find you. Lu Ming whispered in Xian Yanqing's ear. His voice was firm, and so was his gaze. He had seen all kinds of storms along the way. In the heaven realm, even someone as powerful as the evil god tribe had been annihilated by him in the end. Since Xian Yanqing had a great enemy in his previous life, and they were destined to fight, he would flatten him and erase him from the face of time. I believe in you, Lu Ming. Take care. Xian Yanqing muttered as he retreated. With a wave of his hand, the gray-robed elder swept up Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan with a force, and they disappeared without a trace. Little Qing, wait for me. Looking at the empty courtyard, a low and deep voice reverberated in the courtyard. After a long while, Lu Ming took a deep breath to calm himself down. He then returned to his room to cultivate. He would definitely use the shortest amount of time to reach the God King realm. No matter how strong the opponent was, he would flatten them. Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjin's departure did not cause any commotion in Kongxian sect. There were many disciples in the Kongxian sect. Every year, some disciples would go missing, be killed, or die while completing missions, or die in dangerous places. To the major forces, this was a very normal thing. However, the God King experts of the Kongxian sect did not sense the arrival of the gray-robed elder on planet Kongxian. This made Lu Ming understand that the cultivation of the gray-robed elder was impossible to guess. In the blink of an eye, a month had said since Xian Yanqing left. On this day, a group of people arrived at the Huangwu courtyard. Big brother, you've finally come out of seclusion. Huangwu was standing in front of a white-robed young man, his face full of smiles. The white-robed young man had a cold expression on his face. He was Huangwu's elder brother, Huangwen. I know everything about you, Huangwen said, his voice revealing a hint of killing intent. Big brother, you have to avenge me. That Lu Ming, that bastard, dared to injure me and kill the people of my floating light faction. I'll tear him into 1,000 pieces. Huangwu's face was ferocious. He's dead. He's definitely dead. However, it's not easy to deal with him if he stays in the sect. Huangwen frowned. There was a rule in the Kongxian sect that killing was not allowed within the sect. Then what should we do? Are we just going to let him be? Huangwu said unwillingly. Carefree, how is that possible, hee. Huangwen sneered. Dongfang Han, go and issue a life and death duel invitation to that brat. Force him out of the mountain gate, and then go and kill him. Let Dongfang Han write a life and death duel? How is this possible? That kid isn't stupid. How could he agree? Huangwu said. Killing was forbidden in the Kongxian sect, but there was one exception. That was the life and death duel. However, there were also conditions to issuing the deathmatch challenge. The 2 outer sect elders had to sign it, and both parties had to agree to the challenge. Only after they stamped their thumbprints would the deathmatch challenge take effect. This way, they could enter the life and death battle stage and fight to the death, and the sect would not pursue the matter. However, Dongfang Hao was an expert on the virtual god ranking list. Almost all of the outer sect disciples were at the void god realm, and there were close to 100,000 of them. Therefore, someone had created a ranking list, which was the virtual god ranking list. He listed the 120 strongest virtual god-level powerhouses and made a ranking. Everyone who made it onto the virtual god ranking was an expert at the peak of the 9th level of the virtual god realm. Their combat strength was extremely powerful and even Serpa said people of the same level. One had to know that there were more than 120 people who had reached the 9th level of the void god realm in the outer sect of the Kong Xian sect. There were even more than 10,000 people. Many of them had reached the 9th level of ethereal god realm and then got stuck at this realm, unable to advance further. Out of so many people, only 120 were listed. It could be seen how strong these 120 people were. Although Dongfang Hao was ranked 120th at the bottom of the virtual god ranking list, his combat strength far Serpa said other 9th level virtual god realm experts. Sending such an expert to issue a death duel invitation to Lu Ming, it would be a wonder if Lu Ming would sign it. Of course, I know that he doesn't dare to sign it. My purpose is to put pressure on him and force him to leave the mountain gate. Then, I can crush him as easily as crushing an ant. Huang Wen sneered. Big brother is wise. Huang Wu was overjoyed. Next, a young man with short red hair left the place. He was Dongfang Hao, one of the top outer sect disciples. One day, Lu Ming was cultivating when a voice came from outside the courtyard. Lu Ming, get out here. His voice was like thunder, shaking the entire courtyard. Lu Ming's face darkened. He ended his cultivation and went to the courtyard. At this moment, the surrounding outer sect disciples were also alarmed. Someone is finding trouble with Lu Ming again. That's Dongfang Hao. What? It's Dongfang Hao from the virtual god ranking. He's the top expert in the outer sect of the transient light faction. Lu Ming is in trouble. Many people recognized Dongfang Hao and were shocked. Chapter 2675 Third Level of the Void God Realm, Dongfang Hao, Virtual God Ranking. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. The moment he saw Dongfang Hao, he felt a sense of danger, as if he was being stared at by a terrifying wild beast. An expert. Lu Ming immediately knew that this was an extremely terrifying expert. You are Lu Ming? You even dared to kill my floating light factions people. You're very bold. Dongfang Hao glared at Lu Ming coldly, his cold killing intent enveloping Lu Ming completely. I'm indeed quite bold. Lu Ming responded. Is that so? Since you're so bold, I'll issue you a life and death duel now. Do you dare to accept it? A gilded invitation appeared in Dongfang Hao's hand. With a wave of his hand, the invitation flew toward Lu Ming like lightning. Lu Ming stretched out his hand to receive it. He felt a strong surge of energy surging towards him. His body swayed slightly, and he dispelled this energy. He then received the invitation card steadily in his hand. Lu Ming took a glance and saw that on the post there were 5 big words. A life and death duel. There were the signatures of 2 outer sect elders, as well as Dongfang Hao's signature and fingerprint. As long as Lu Ming stamped his thumbprint on it, he would have agreed to the life and death duel. What? Dongfang Hao actually issued a death duel invitation to Lu Ming? I didn't hear wrong, did I? You didn't hear wrong. That's it. It can't be. Dongfang Hao is a person on the virtual god ranking list. Lu Ming has just entered the sect not long ago. Dongfang Hao's words caused a commotion among the outer disciples. An expert on the virtual god ranking list actually issued a life and death duel invitation to a disciple who had just entered the sect. This was rare in history. You're really shameless. 9th level ethereal god realm, and you dare to challenge a disciple who just entered the sect. Lu Ming sneered and mocked. Cut the Sivar, AP, weren't you very bold just now? Now you're a coward? If you don't have the guts to accept it, then get out of the sect. Dongfang Hao berated. Many people looked at him with disdain. Dongfang Hao was an expert on the virtual god ranking list. Wasn't it normal for him to not dare to accept the challenge? However, no one dared to speak up. Lu Ming looked at the life and death duel letter in his hands and seemed to be in deep thought. Did you hear that? If you don't dare to answer, get out of the sect. My Kong Xian sect will not keep such a cowardly person. Dongfang Hao continued to berate him shamelessly. Don't make a fuss here. I'll sign this life and death duel agreement. Suddenly, Lu Ming's voice was heard. Then a drop of blood seeped out of his finger, and he imprinted his handprint on the mountain of books. The surroundings suddenly fell silent. He signed it. Lu Ming actually signed it. Everyone was stunned. They did not expect that Lu Ming would really dare to sign the life and death contract. Dongfang Hao himself was stunned. He had never thought that Lu Ming would sign the life and death duel agreement. His original intention was to force Lu Ming to leave the sect, and then Huang Wen would send people to kill Lu Ming. Kid, there's a time limit to the life and death duel. It must be carried out within 3 years. Otherwise, you'll be expelled from the sect. Do you understand? Dongfang Hao said coldly. 3 years? There's no need for 3 years. We'll meet on the life and death battle stage 1 year later. Lu Ming said. 1 year, all right, 1 year later then. Dongfang Hao then added a year to the life and death duel. A year later, if Lu Ming did not dare to accept the challenge, he would be expelled from the Kongxian sect. After writing down the date, Dongfang Hao cast a cold glance at Lu Ming and soared into the sky, leaving the place. Lu Ming actually signed it. He doesn't want to live anymore. I think he's deliberately stalling for time. By time, what could he do in a year? He won't be able to catch up to Dongfang Hao in a year. Could it be that he wants to take this opportunity to leave the Kongxian sect? It's possible. Although he has left the Kongxian sect, at least he's still alive. It's better than being killed by Dongfang Hao. Many people discussed and felt that Lu Ming was deliberately stalling for time. In the Yellow Martial Palace. What? That kid actually signed it. Huang Wen, Huang Wu, and the others were also surprised when they heard the news. They initially thought that Lu Ming would definitely not sign it. Huang Wen's purpose was to force Lu Ming to leave. Once Lu Ming signed it, his plan was disrupted. This kid is definitely stalling for time, and then taking the opportunity to sneak away. Huang Wu said. The others nodded and agreed with Lu Ming's plan. Given Lu Ming's current cultivation base, there was a 10,000% chance that he would not be a match for Dongfang Hao in a year's time. What a good plan. However, since Zhen has left, he can forget about coming back in the future. Huang Wen said coldly. If he left, he would be expelled from the sect. 1 year later, let's wait and see. If he doesn't leave, well, kill him, Huang Wen said. He then left the place and returned to the inner sect. A year was too short for a martial god. They did not think that Lu Ming would be able to cause any trouble within a year. The news that Lu Ming had signed the life and death duel agreement with Dongfang Hao spread among the outer sect disciples rapidly, causing a huge commotion. Some people thought that Lu Ming was courting death, but more people thought that he was stalling for time and wanted to take the opportunity to escape. In fact, some of them were secretly staring at Lu Ming to see if he was going to slip away. Lu Ming could not be bothered with all this. He returned to his room and continued cultivating. After a few days, Lu Ming opened his eyes. I can continue to break through, Lu Ming muttered. After a few months of tempering and polishing, his foundation was already very solid, and he could continue to attack new realms. He still had many wood crystals in his hands, but he had not refined them yet. He took out a wood crystal, swallowed it, and began to cultivate. And NVSB he trained in sovereign divine power, and each breakthrough required an astonishing amount of resources. However, the wood crystals that Lu Ming had obtained in the abyss, and the ones he had obtained after killing the plant life forms were not used. They were enough for him to break through. The wood crystals were quickly refined. Lu Ming's cultivation level was also rising rapidly, and he was approaching the 3rd level of the Void God realm. Half a month later, when Lu Ming refined the last wood crystal, his cultivation had successfully broken through to the 3rd level of the Void God realm. 3rd level Void God realm isn't enough to deal with Dongfang Hao, Lu Ming muttered. When he was at the 2nd level of the Virtual God realm, Lu Ming could easily defeat powerhouses at the 7th level of the Virtual God realm, such as the young man in luxurious clothes and the others. At that time, his battle power was equivalent to an 8th level Void God realm prodigy who controlled king-grade divine power. Now that his cultivation had broken through to the 3rd level of the Void God realm, theoretically, he could fight a 9th level Void God realm expert if he went all out. However, Lu Ming knew that he would most likely not be a match for a 9th level Void God level powerhouse. This was because 9th level Void God realm experts could already practice and use divine skills. There was a huge gap between them and 8th level Void God realm experts. Once a divine skill was used, one's battle prowess would be astonishing. Moreover, Dongfang Hao was on the Virtual God ranking. His abilities must be even more terrifying. Lu Ming would most likely be no match for him now. Even if he activated the battle character formula to double his combat strength, he would not be a match for him. Lu Ming still needed to make more breakthroughs before he could fight Dongfang Hao. Chapter 2676 Sect Master of Kong Xian Sect. Everyone thought that Lu Ming was trying to stall for time and take the opportunity to escape. However, Lu Ming did not have such plans at all. The reason why he gave him a year's time was to force himself to improve quickly. He wanted to reach the God King realm in the shortest time possible. Continue. He closed his eyes and continued to cultivate and comprehend the battle character formula. In the blink of an eye, another 2 months had passed. In the core area of the Kong Xian sect, a figure was waiting in front of a secret chamber. If Lu Ming was here, he would definitely recognize this figure. He was the outer sect elder who had brought them to Kong Xian sect during the assessment for the recruitment of disciples, Huoquan. Kacha! The door of the secret room opened, and an old man with white hair and a white beard walked out. The old man's eyes seemed to be filled with wisdom. Huoquan pays his respects to the sect master. Huoquan immediately saluted respectfully. This old man was the sect leader of the Kong Xian sect, Dragon Boat Mountain. Huoquan, why are you looking for this lord? Dragon Boat Mountain said. Because of the new disciples, sect master was in closed-door cultivation before, so I didn't come to disturb you. I heard that sect master is about to come out of closed-door cultivation, so I came to report. Huoquan said. A new disciple? You can just arrange this matter. Why do you need to report to me? Dragon Boat Mountain said indifferently, a hint of displeasure on his face. Sect leader, it's different this time. There's a little guy inside. I suspect that the divine power he controls is divine-grade divine power. Huoquan immediately bowed and said, What? Dragon Boat Mountain's eyes widened as a terrifying aura burst out from his body. This aura was as vast as the universe. Even with Huoquan's heavenly god realm cultivation base, he was still suppressed by this aura. His body trembled violently, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. However, the aura of the Dragon Boat Mountain was immediately retracted. However, his eyes still revealed deep shock. Divine-grade divine power. Is what you said true? Dragon Boat Mountain asked as he stared at Huoquan. This subordinate is not very sure. During the disciple recruitment test, I observed his moves many times, but that little fellow cultivates a special secret technique that can conceal his divine power aura very well. I am only suspicious, but I am not 100% sure. Huoquan said. Bring him here. I want to examine him personally. Dragon Boat Mountain said. Yes. Huoquan bowed and took his leave. Divine-grade divine power, divine-grade divine power. Dragon Boat Mountain muttered. His eyes flickered with a fiery light that was mixed with a hint of ferocity. Someone's coming again. Lu Ming was cultivating. Sensing that there were people outside, he ended his cultivation and walked out. Elder Huoquan. At the sight of Huoquan, Lu Ming was slightly stunned and somewhat surprised. Ever since he came to the outer sect of Kong Xian sect, Lu Ming had not seen Huoquan. Now, Huoquan suddenly came to look for him. What was the matter? Could it be about the battle with Dongfang Hao? Lu Ming made a guess. Lu Ming greets Elder Hua. Lu Ming cupped his fists and said, Lu Ming, come with me. The sect master wants to see you. Huoquan smiled and sized Lu Ming up. There was a hint of shock in his eyes. He remembered very clearly that Lu Ming's cultivation was only at the demigod realm during the 13 clans assessment. Now, he had actually reached the 3rd level of the void god realm. It had only been a few years, and such a cultivation speed was simply too shocking. Lu Ming himself was stunned. The sect master wanted to see him? He was only an outer sect disciple who had just entered the sect. Why would the sect master of Kong Xian sect want to see him all of a sudden? Follow me. Huoquan suppressed the shock in his heart, turned around, and flew away. Lu Ming could only suppress the doubts in his heart and follow Huoquan. The outer sect of the Kong Xian sect was located on a huge mountain range. One would reach the inner sect area if they went deep into the mountain range. This was not a single mountain range, but rather several. They were like enormous dragons that were intertwining with each other. The divine qi here was extremely dense, and the cultivation conditions here were even better than the outer sect. Lu Ming followed Huoquan and flew into the inner sect area. Not long after, they arrived at a mountain peak. There was a grand hall on the mountain peak. Lu Ming followed Huoquan into the main hall and saw an old man with white hair and a beard. The old man had a smile on his face, but he exuded a sense of majesty that made people not dare to look at him directly. Subordinate greets sect master. Huaquan bowed respectfully. Disciple Lu Ming greets the sect master. Lu Ming followed suit and bowed. Huaquan, you may leave. Dragon Boat Mountain waved his hand. Huaquan left respectfully, leaving only Lu Ming and the Dragon Boat Mountain in the hall. The Dragon Boat Mountain's eyes flickered with a strange light as it sized Lu Ming up. For some reason, Lu Ming felt guseb. UMPS all over his body when the Dragon Boat Mountain's gaze swept over him. It was as if he was being stared at by an extremely terrifying venomous snake. All of a sudden, a radiance emanated from Dragon Boat's body. Rays of blood-red divine power condensed into venomous snakes that pounced toward Lu Ming. They were filled with terrifying killing intent. Lu Ming was shocked. He had never expected that the sect master of Kong Xian's sect would try to kill him. He had never met him or offended him, so why would he do this? Even though he knew that there was a huge difference between his cultivation and his opponents, Lu Ming would not give up without a fight. He retreated quickly. However, as soon as Lu Ming retreated, the SPAC behind him seemed to have solidified and completely blocked his retreat. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A few venomous snakes wrapped themselves around Lu Ming. They were formed from the divine power of the dragon boat. They were astonishingly powerful. The terrifying power rushed into Lu Ming's body, and he felt a tearing pain. Break! Lu Ming roared. And NBSB at this moment, he had no time to hide. He unleashed all of his sovereign divine power, violet gold in color, as he charged at the venomous snakes. At the same time, a red gold armor appeared on Lu Ming's body. This was the divine skill, 9-stage crimson gold armor. When it was used, it was as if a suit of armor had covered the body. Divine-grade divine power, it really is divine-grade divine power, and it's even a ruler's divine power. The dragon boat's eyes burned with shone as they looked at the divine energy circulating around Lu Ming's body. With a wave of their hands, the venomous snakes that were coiling around Lu Ming's body disappeared without a trace. Who? Lu Ming felt his entire body relax. He could not help but gasp for air, a layer of cold sweat breaking out on his body. Sect Master, what is the meaning of this? Lu Ming looked at Dragon Boat Mountain with a gloomy expression. No one would be in a good mood if she tried to kill him the moment they met. Not bad, not bad. You have indeed mastered divine-grade divine power. Dragon Boat Mountain's face was filled with joy as he repeatedly nodded his head. He was extremely excited. Lu Ming frowned. The other party was only trying to test if he had mastered the divine-grade divine energy. Your name is Lu Ming, right? In the future, I will nurture you well and let you grow up as soon as possible. Dragon Boat Mountain said. Thank you, sect leader. Lu Ming said. Chapter 2677 Dark Dragon Blood Cursed, however. I have a condition. Dragon Boat Mountain's tone suddenly changed as he said, I will nurture you well, but you have to swear on your life source that you will listen to my every word in the future. You will do whatever I tell you to do, understand? Lu Ming's eyes suddenly narrowed and his face darkened. The meaning behind Dragon Boat Mountain's words was clear. They would nurture Lu Ming in the future. However, Lu Ming had to listen to their every word. This was no different from becoming a tool for Dragon Boat Mountain. The other party wanted to use him as a knife to achieve some kind of goal. How could Lu Ming agree? Sect Master, I swear on my life source that there's no need to do so. You're the Sect Master. If there's anything that you need Lu Ming's help with in the future, he'll definitely do his best. Lu Ming said, Are you rejecting me? Dragon Boat Mountain's expression turned cold, and a dangerous light flickered in his eyes. I swear on my life source. Please forgive Lu Ming for not being able to agree to this. Lu Ming said with a determined expression. Once he swore on his life source, Lu Ming would at the very least become the dragon boat's puppet in the future. He would not be able to act on his own. Unable to agree? Today, you have to agree even if you don't want to. If you can't be used by me, I'd rather destroy you. The Dragon Boat Mountain's expression turned even gloomier, and his tone was frosty. A wave of terrifying killing intent enveloped Lu Ming, causing him to shiver. Lu Ming did not expect the sect leader of the Kong Xian sect to be so despicable. Once they knew that he could control divine-grade divine power, they wanted to control him. As the master of a sect, he actually threatened his disciples like this. If this were to spread out, I don't know how many people would be bitterly disappointed. Lu Ming suppressed the anger in his heart. Are you threatening me? Dragon Boat Mountain said coldly. I'm telling the truth. If you want to kill me today, just do it. You want me to swear? Dream on. Lu Ming confronted him without any fear. Although he didn't want to die, he would rather die than be the other party's puppet. Hee, you have a backbone and aren't afraid of death. But do you think it's useful to be unafraid of death? You think I can't deal with you if you don't swear? How naive. I'll plant the dark dragon blood curse on you and make you wish you were dead. The dragon boat mountain roared and grabbed at the air. Lu Ming felt a powerful force grabbing at him. He could not resist at all and was caught in the dragon boat's hands. Then, the fingers on the dragon boat pointed out continuously. One after another, terrifying rune arcs slithered into Lu Ming's body like blood-red vipers. Roar! Lu Ming let out a beast-like roar because it was too painful. At this moment, Lu Ming's body felt as if it was being bitten by countless small snakes. It was extremely uncomfortable and painful. Hee haha, enjoy my dark dragon blood curse. The dragon boats sneered continuously. They waved their fingers faster and faster, and more blood-red runes burrowed into Lu Ming's body, intertwining to form a terrifying array. Old man, you old man who won't die, you are despicable and shameless. Lu Ming cursed in pain. Curse all you want, I'll let you curse all you want. Dragon Boat Mountain sneered. You old fart. How dare you call yourself the leader of a sect? You're shameless, perverted, and utterly devoid of conscience. Your son doesn't have an A.N.U.S. You're impotent at night. By Tianyang, fuck. Lu Ming's mouth did not stop. He was shooting like a machine gun. After hanging out with Dandan for so long, it was not for nothing. Even though Dragon Boat Mountain's will was firm, he was scolded to the point that his eyelids kept twitching. After a short while, the Dragon Boat Mountain finally stopped moving. The dark dragon blood curse had already been laid down. Lu Ming's body emitted a piercing red light. It was like countless small snakes that wrapped around his body, causing him to suffer endless pain. This pain was worse than being cut into pieces. In the end, Lu Ming did not even have the strength to curse. He fell to the ground and panted heavily. Now you know how powerful I am. The dragon boats sneered. With a wave of their hands, the runes on Lu Ming's body, which were like vipers, disappeared. The pain on Lu Ming's body also disappeared. Lu Ming looked into his body and realized that the runes that were like poisonous snakes had disappeared without a trace. He could not detect them at all. The dark dragon blood curse has been hidden deep in your body. As long as I think about it, you will be in extreme pain and even die instantly. Now, your life and death are completely in my hands. Do you understand? Dragon Boat Mountain said coldly. You're really despicable. Tell me, what do you want me to do? Lu Ming gritted his teeth. He planned to calm the old man down first, then think of a way to get rid of the dark dragon blood curse in his body. There's no rush. Your cultivation is still too weak now. When your cultivation improves, it'll naturally need you. Remember, you'd better be obedient. Otherwise, it'll make you disappear completely. Dragon Boat Mountain said coldly. He then took out a golden token and threw it to Lu Ming. This is a gold token, the highest quality token in the Kong Xian sect. With this token, other than some restricted areas, you can enter anywhere you want in the Kong Xian sect. You can also enter some cultivation sacred grounds. Cultivate well. With that, the Dragon Boat Mountain waved its hand, and Lu Ming was pushed out by a force. Damn it! Lu Ming's expression was extremely cold. The other party naturally did not have good intentions when they gave him the gold token. They only hoped that he would improve as soon as possible and be of use to him in the future. Lu Ming lowered his head and pondered for a moment. He kept the gold token and walked out. Not long after, he saw Huoquan. Lu Ming, how is it? What did the sect master say to you? With a talent like yours, the sect master will probably put in a lot of effort to cultivate you. Huoquan said with a smile. His smile was very clean, as if he didn't know anything. This Huoquan, doesn't he know how despicable the Dragon Boat Mountain is? Lu Ming was puzzled. He nodded casually and said, It's all right. I'll send you back, Huoquan said. He then brought Lu Ming out of the inner sect area and returned to the outer sect area. After returning to his residence, Lu Ming immediately went into seclusion. He circulated the universe thousand Dao art with all his might. The Dominator's divine power seeped into every part of his body and swam through every inch of his muscles, bones, and even his internal organs. He wanted to find the dark dragon blood curse and destroy it. However, after using his ruler's divine power to make a full circle, he found nothing. That old man, since he knows that I have control over the ruler's divine power, He definitely knows that I can't destroy the dark dragon blood curse with the ruler's divine power. Lu Ming's face was gloomy. He had not expected the sect leader of the Kong Xian sect to be such a despicable, cunning, and shameless person. For now, I can only play along and calm the other party down. I'll find a way to break the dark dragon blood curse in the future. I, Lu Ming, will remember this grudge today. Lu Ming's eyes flashed with a cold light. He had been through countless storms and waves on his way here. He didn't believe that he wouldn't be able to overcome this obstacle. Lu Ming then took out the gold token. Since you want to cultivate me well, then I'll borrow your strength to improve my strength first. Lu Ming pondered. Then he left the outer gate area and headed toward the inner gate. There were many cultivation sanctuaries in the inner sect. With this golden token, Lu Ming could use those cultivation sanctuaries to cultivate and improve his strength. Chapter 2678 Inner Sect Area. Lu Ming went to the inner sect area again, but he was blocked at an entrance. Stop! Two burly men in black appeared in front of Lu Ming, blocking his way. These two black-robed men's auras were as thick as mountains. With a single glance, one could tell that they were terrifying experts. Two seniors, I want to go in. Lu Ming cupped his fists and said, You're going in? Little fellow, hurry up and leave. Outer disciples are not allowed to enter unless there are special circumstances. A burly man in black casually waved his hand and revealed a look of contempt. They could tell at a glance that Lu Ming's cultivation was only at third-level void god realm. With such a cultivation, even in the outer sect, he would be at the bottom. How dare he enter the inner sect? Lu Ming's expression was calm. He knew that this would happen. The last time he came here, he was not stopped because he was with Huaquan. This time, he was alone. It was normal for him to be stopped. Seniors, this is my token. Lu Ming took out the gold token. Token? What token? The two men in black casually glanced over, and their eyes instantly widened. Huang. Gold token. The two of them were tongue-tied and almost bit their own tongues. They had never expected that Lu Ming would have a gold token. In the Kong Xian sect, there were very few people who had a gold token. Apart from a few holy sons and holy virgins, only a few people had golden tokens, but they all had an obliident. Ties. However, Lu Ming was merely a third-level void god. They had never seen him before. How could he have a gold token? Could it be? This kid is a disciple secretly taken in by some big shot? The two black-robed men thought to themselves, and their faces immediately revealed a respectful expression. So it turns out that little brother has a gold token. Then you can naturally enter. Please come in. The two of them immediately changed their expressions, nodding and bowing, trying to please him. Many thanks. Lu Ming smiled and was about to step in. Wait a moment. At this moment, a delicate shout came from behind. There was a flash of light and a young and beautiful girl appeared beside Lu Ming. The young lattice skin was like jade, and her facial features were exquisite. She was a rare beauty. She blinked her big eyes and sized Lu Ming up curiously. Who are you? I've never seen it before. Where did you get the gold token? Miss, I don't think I need to tell you where I got the gold token. Lu Ming smiled faintly. You want to tell me? You just don't dare to tell me, right? Tell me, did you steal your gold token? The young girl widened her eyes, as if she wanted to see through Lu Ming. Lu Ming was speechless. Miss, the people who have the gold tokens all have high cultivation levels. Moreover, they're all hidden in their storage rings. Where am I supposed to go to steal them? That's true. The young girl was stunned and pouted. Miss, I still have something to do, so we'll take my leave first. Having said that, Lu Ming walked toward the entrance. Hey, wait for me. You still haven't told me where you got your gold token from. The young girl shouted and followed Lu Ming. The two men in black seemed to be very familiar with the girl. They ignored her and allowed her to enter. This girl's ident. Tai isn't simple. She's only at the void god realm, but she didn't stop him. Lu Ming's heart stirred. He could sense that the girl's cultivation base hadn't reached the true god realm yet. She should still be at the ethereal god realm. Those at the void spirit realm were considered to be in the outer sect, so they shouldn't be able to enter the inner sect. Of course, this was with the exception of some special people, such as the disciples or descendants of some great figure. Hey, you still haven't told me where the gold token came from? Tell me, just tell me. The young girl followed Lu Ming closely and muttered to herself. Lu Ming was speechless. He could tell that the young girl had no ill intentions towards him, and was just purely curious. "Miss, I'll tell you the truth. This gold token was given to me by the sect master," Lu Ming said helplessly. "Did the sect master give it to you?" The young girl blinked her big eyes and became even more curious. "Why did the sect master give you a gold token? What's your relationship with the sect master? Could it be that you're the sect master's private disciple? Or are you the sect master's illegitimate child?" Pfft. Lu Ming almost spat out a mouthful of blood 3 feet away. What was this little girl thinking? The hole in his brain was too big. "Don't make wild guesses. It's not what you think," Lu Ming said. "If it's not what I'm thinking, then what is it?" The young girl asked again. Lu Ming was powerless. He could not be bothered with the young girl and strode forward. However, the young girl was like a shadow, following Lu Ming closely. She seemed to be determined not to give up until she figured out what was going on. Lu Ming could not be bothered with the other party. He buried his head in his journey. "Hey, Imu Linglong, what's your name? Hey, where are you going? Hey, that's where the inner sect disciples go to the toilet. What are you doing there?" Lu Ming stopped in his tracks, his face turning red. This is my first time in the inner sect," Lu Ming explained awkwardly. "It's your first time here. If you want to find a place, I can lead the way." The young lady smiled. "I want to find a place to cultivate. It's best if it's the kind of place that can quickly improve cultivation," Lu Ming said. "The Divine Pulse Tower is the best place for cultivation. The divine qi in the Divine Pulse Tower is extremely dense. It even contains a trace of the power of the Divine Pulse, which can help people improve their cultivation quickly." The young girl said. "Divine Pulse Tower? How do we get there?" Lu Ming's eyes lit up. "Hey, you still haven't told me your name." The young girl widened her eyes. "My name is Lu Ming." Lu Ming coughed drily and explained. "Lu Ming? What an uncouth name." The young girl pouted while Lu Ming's face darkened. "Let's go. I'll take you to the Divine Pulse Tower. But I'll tell you that you'll have to spend points to cultivate in the Divine Pulse Tower." The young girl said. "Points? What points?" Lu Ming was stunned. "You don't even know the points." The young lady rolled her eyes and had a look of disdain on her face. Lu Ming's face turned even darker. He realized that he had been despised by the young lady many times in just a short while. "Points. Of course, it's sect points. You can obtain points by completing missions A.S. signed by the sect. The points are very useful in the sect. You can enter a cultivation place to cultivate, and you can even exchange them for divine artifacts, various divine skills, divine techniques, and secret skills," the young girl explained. Lu Ming understood now. The Kong Xian sect's so-called points were like the contribution points in other places. Lu Ming started to have a headache. He did not have any points at all. It seemed that he could not go. "You don't have points, do you? How about this? Do you have divine crystals? You can exchange divine crystals for points, but it's not worth it. 10,000 divine crystals can only be exchanged for 1 point. Cultivating in the Divine Pulse Tower will cost 1 point a day," the young girl said. Lu Ming gasped in shock. This was too expensive. It cost 1 point a day to cultivate in the Divine Pulse Tower, which was equivalent to 10,000 divine crystals. It was extremely shocking. "It's a pity that I don't have many points left. Otherwise, I could sell some to you at a lower price," the young girl muttered. Chapter 2679 Cultivation Base broken again. "I do have some divine artifacts on me. Where can I sell divine artifacts here? I'll sell them and exchange them for some points." Lu Ming gritted his teeth. In the end, he decided to go to the Divine Pulse Tower to cultivate. No matter how many divine crystals he had, it was useless to keep them. The only way was to convert them into power. And NBSB, he still had some middle-quality divine artifacts on hand that he could sell. "Let's go, I'll take you there." The young lady led the way, followed by Lu Ming. Not long after, they arrived at a bustling place. This place was the place in the inner sect area where people exchanged and sold all kinds of treasures. At the moment, Lu Ming still had 11 middle-grade divine artifacts. Lu Ming planned to sell 6 of them and keep 5. The price of a middle-grade divine artifact was naturally not something that a low-grade divine artifact could compare to. A good level 9 low-grade god artifact could be sold for 100,000 god crystals. As for a middle-grade god artifact, even the lowest level 1 middle-grade god artifact could be sold for several 100,000. Lu Ming sold 6 items. Among them, There were 3 level 1 middle grade divine artifacts, 2 level 2 middle grade divine artifacts, and 1 level 3 middle grade divine artifact. After selling it, he got a total of 3.6 million god crystals. The young girl widened her eyes in shock. She did not expect Lu Ming to be so rich. After that, Lu Ming bought a huge pile of divine artifact fragments. They were all fragments of divine artifacts of level 7 low grade and above. There were fragments of level 7 low grade to level 9 low grade divine artifacts. Lu Ming spent 200,000 divine crystals on the huge pile. These divine artifact fragments were enough for Qiuqiu to eat for a period of time. After that, Lu Ming followed Yu Linglong to the Points Redemption main hall. He used 1.6 million points to redeem 160 points. Let's go and cultivate. With a large number of points, Lu Ming was full of pride. He waved his hand and walked towards the Divine Pulse Tower with Yu Linglong. Is this the Divine Pulse Tower? It looks ordinary. Soon, they arrived at the foot of a giant tower. The tower looked very ancient, but it didn't give off any aura, as if it were just made of some random giant stones. Let's go. The effect of cultivation on each floor of the Divine Pulse Tower is almost the same. It's 1 point a day, Yu Linglong said and walked toward the Divine Pulse Tower. Someone was guarding the Divine Pulse Tower. Take out your ident. Tai tokens and register. An old man at the foot of the Divine Pulse Tower said. Lu Ming and Yu Linglong took out their ident. Tai tokens and handed them to the old man. The points were all recorded in their ident. Tai tokens. The old man placed their ident. Tai tokens on a disk array. The disk array flashed a few times and returned the ident. Tai tokens to the 2. Go in. Remember, 1 point will be consumed for 1 day of cultivation in the Divine Pulse Tower. When the points in your ident, Tai tokens are used up, the formation of the Divine Pulse Tower will throw you out, but you'll be embark. Said. So, you'd better get out of the Divine Pulse Tower before your points are used up. The old man warned. The 2 of them nodded and walked into the Divine Pulse Tower. There were secret rooms in the Divine Pulse Tower. All the secret rooms on the first floor were occupied. The 2 of them went to the second floor. Lo Lu Ming. If you have any questions in the future, you can ask me. Here. With that, Yu Linglong Pa S, said Lu Ming a voice transmission jade talisman, and walked into a secret room. Lu Ming smiled and entered a secret room. The door of the secret room closed automatically. Lu Ming sat cross-legged and started cultivating with the universe 1000 Tao scripture. Hoo. Immediately, the rich divine qi in the surroundings gathered towards Lu Ming. What a dense divine qi! Lu Ming was secretly shocked. The divine qi here was so dense that it was almost tangible. It was many times faster than absorbing divine crystals. It even contained a trace of strange energy. Once it entered Lu Ming's body, it was quickly transformed into Lu Ming's divine power and could even help to temper his divine body. So fast. The cultivation speed here is many times faster than outside. 10,000 divine crystals. It's worth it. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Before, he had been worried about the divine crystals. 10,000 divine crystals could only help him cultivate for a day. But now he felt that it was worth it. Although it was very expensive, he would definitely be able to break through quickly and break through his cultivation. However, before he focused on cultivation, Lu Ming took out a pile of divine artifact fragments and put them aside for Qiuqiu to eat slowly. As for him, he began to focus on cultivation. In the blink of an eye, 3 months said. Lu Ming's cultivation had skyrocketed, and he was already at peak 3rd level virtual god level, only a step away from 4th level virtual god level. One had to know that it was not easy to break through to the void god realm. Many people would need hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of years to do so. He, on the other hand, had only used 3 months to reach the 4th level of the void god realm. This was all because of the Divine Pulse Tower. Begin the assault. Lu Ming had an idea, and the divine energy in his body quickly circulated. Boom, boom, boom. His body seemed to be rumbling as he started to break through to the 4th level of the void god realm. Not long after, his aura skyrocketed, and it was much stronger than before. 4th level void god realm, breakthrough. A smile appeared on Lu Ming's face. Now that he had broken through to the 4th level of the void god realm, Lu Ming was even more confident in his battle with Dongfang Hao. It's worth it to break through to the 4th level of the void god realm in 3 months. Lu Ming smiled. Although he didn't need 900,000 divine crystals to break through to the fourth level of the void god realm, it would take dozens or even hundreds of times longer. In the Divine Pulse Tower, he had broken through in 3 months, which was equivalent to spending a large number of divine crystals to buy time. What Lu Ming lacked the most now was time. It was all worth it. He could earn more divine crystals once his cultivation increased. In less than a year, my cultivation has increased by 2 levels. I need to stop and polish it. I can use the rest of my time to cultivate my divine skills. Although Lu Ming was now more confident in his fight against Dongfang Hao, he could not afford to miss out on the 9-fold golden armor and the 3 apocalyptic strikes if he wanted to be 100% confident. If these 2 divine skills had a breakthrough, he would be more confident. Lu Ming immediately left the Divine Pulse Tower. "Senior, may I ask if there's a place to cultivate a divine skill in the inner sect?" When he arrived outside the Divine Pulse Tower, Lu Ming asked the elder who was guarding the Divine Pulse Tower. "There are some places that ordinary disciples are forbidden from entering." The old man glanced at Lu Ming and said indifferently, "Senior, this is my token." Lu Ming took out the gold token again. "A gold token." The old man's eyes suddenly widened. He sized Lu Ming up carefully in surprise. He obviously did not expect that Lu Ming, a virtual god-level disciple, would have a gold token. With the gold token, you can go to most of the places in the inner sect area. The best place to cultivate a divine skill is, of course, the Divine Skill Valley. I have a map of the inner sect area here. You can use it. The old man took out a map and said it to Lu Ming. The reason why he was so nice to Lu Ming was naturally because he guessed that Lu Ming was the disciple of some big shot, and he wanted to befriend and build a good relationship with Lu Ming. Chapter 2680, Placing a Bet. Many thanks, Senior. Lu Ming took the map and scanned it with his spiritual senses. A map appeared in his mind. It was a map of the entire inner sect area. The addresses, buildings, and cultivation places were all clearly marked on it. This gold token is quite useful, Lu Ming pondered. Although he had been cursed by the Dragon Boat Mountain with the dark dragon blood curse, at least it was not without any benefits. At the very least, the golden token was still very useful to him. Without the gold token, he would not be able to enter the inner sect area, let alone these cultivation places. It would be difficult for him to make a breakthrough in his cultivation in a short period of time. Following the map, Lu Ming walked towards the Divine Skill Valley. The Divine Skill Valley was the best place to cultivate divine skills in the inner gate area. Of course, it also required points, but it was slightly cheaper, 1 point for 5 days of cultivation. Lu Ming's I Tai token still had 70 points. It was enough for him to cultivate for 350 days. Lu Ming entered the Divine Skill Valley and devoted himself to cultivation. Time flew by, and it was getting closer to the 1-year agreement between Lu Ming and Dongfang Hao. In the blink of an eye, there were only 3 days left. During this period of time, the outer door was bustling with noise and excitement. Many people were discussing Lu Ming. A year's time might not be a short time for ordinary people, and they could forget many things. However, for people at the martial god realm, a year's time was no different from a breath's time. The life and death battle between Lu Ming and Dongfang Hao was still fresh in their minds. Why hasn't Lu Ming appeared yet? I saw him go out earlier. Did he really slip away? That must be it. I told you that he's just asking for death by agreeing to Dongfang Hao's life and death duel. He's definitely going to run away. I heard that he's the first place in the disciple recruitment assessment this time. I didn't know he had no BALLS. It would be a wonder if you have the guts to know that you're going to die. In the outer sect area, everyone was talking about Lu Ming. They all thought that Lu Ming had slipped away and did not dare to accept the challenge. At this moment, Lu Ming was coming out from the inner gate area. Lu Ming had a smile on his face. He had gained a lot from his cultivation during this period of time. He was very confident in his battle with Dongfang Hao. Soon, he returned to the inner court area. Lu Ming is back. Instantly, this piece of news caused an uproar in the outer gate area. The people who were certain that Lu Ming had slipped away earlier were dumbfounded and speechless. You still dare to come back? You're really looking for death. Simply stupid. Lu Ming's return was a slap to these people's faces. These people flew into a rage out of humiliation. They thought that Lu Ming was so foolish that he came back to court death. In short, the news of Lu Ming's return quickly spread to the outer sect. In the Yellow Marshal Palace. Good, good. It's good that he's back. We can kill him now. Huang Wu laughed. Don't worry. This time, I'll make sure he dies a horrible death. On the side, Dongfang Hao's face was ferocious and his killing intent was cold. Come, come, come. Place your bets, place your bets. If you bet on Dongfang Hao, it's 200 to 1. If you bet on Lu Ming, it's 1 to 50. Near the life and death arena, a burly man had actually started a bet on who would win between Lu Ming and Dongfang Hao. 200 to 1? You're too greedy. This ratio is too low. That's right, I bet $200 and only earned $1. Many people looked down on him. If they bet on Lu Ming winning, they would earn 50 divine crystals for each piece. However, if they bet on Dongfang Hao winning, they would only earn 1 divine crystal for each piece of divine crystal. If you don't place your bet, I'll place mine. Lu Ming is definitely going to lose. Although the ratio of 200 to 1 is a little low, it's a sure win. I'll bet 100,000 divine crystals on Dongfang Hao. An outer sect disciple had placed a bet of 100,000 divine gems. Many people's eyes lit up. That's right, Dongfang Hao was definitely going to win. Even though it wasn't a lot, it was still a profit. I'm also betting on Dongfang Hao. I'm betting 50,000 divine gems. I'll bet 200,000 divine crystals on Dongfang Hao. I also bet, there's no doubt about this battle. Dongfang Hao is definitely going to win. A large group of outer sect disciples placed their bets on Dongfang Hao. The man's face was covered in cold sweat. He also thought that Dongfang Hao would win for sure. Almost everyone had bet on Dongfang Haoxing, so he would lose a lot of money. He had deliberately set the odds on Lu Ming at 150. With such high odds, he initially thought that some people would take the risk and bet on Lu Ming's victory. In that case, he would be able to earn a fortune. Why don't you guys bet on Lu Ming? If you bet on Lu Ming, you'll be betting 1 with 50. The burly man shouted. Do you think I'm stupid? If I bet on Lu Ming, I'll definitely lose. That's right, I'm not giving you money for nothing. Hurry up and write me a receipt. The group of outer sect disciples clamored, and the burly man broke out in cold sweat. It's really lively. Lu Ming had just returned from the inner sect area. When he said bye and saw so many people placing their bets, he immediately became interested. Lu Ming is here. Someone called out. Immediately, everyone's eyes turned to Lu Ming. There were those who were pitying him, those who were sighing, and those who were indifferent. Anyway, they looked at Lu Ming as if he was a dead man. In their opinion, Lu Ming would definitely die in 3 days. This bet, how do you place it? What are the odds? Lu Ming's interest was piqued. He walked over and asked, if you bet on Dongfang Haoxing, the odds are 200 to 1. If you bet on Lu Ming, the odds are 1 to 50. Someone answered, my odds are so high? There should be a lot of people who bet on me winning. Lu Ming looked at the burly man. No one is betting on you winning. The burly man said with a bitter face. What? Lu Ming was depressed. How much did they look down on him? So many people bet on Dongfang Haoxing with a 204-1 payout, but he bet with a 54-1 payout and no one bet on him? Did they all think that he would lose? Everyone, because too many people are betting on Dongfang Haoxing. Now the odds will be changed. The odds for those who are betting on Dongfang Haoxing will be changed to 500 to 1. The burly man shouted. What? 500 to 1? Why don't you just die? If you bet $500, you'll only earn $1. If you bet $50,000, you'll only earn $100. That's too little. It's not good to be so shameless. Many people questioned loudly, but the middle-aged man's attitude was firm. He was determined to win 500 to 1. This business is not bad. Lu Ming's gaze shifted and he had an idea. He thought of a way to earn money. Everyone, please listen to me. Lu Ming clapped his hands to attract everyone's attention. If he's not the banker, he'll be the banker. Those who want to place a bet, come to me. If you bet on Dongfang Hao, it's 100 for 1. If you bet on Lu Ming, it's a 1 for 1. Lu Ming said loudly. What? If you bet on Dongfang Haoxing, it's 100 to 1. I'm buying it. I'm buying 100,000 divine crystals. Immediately, someone placed a bet. Many people's eyes were also burning. The burly man had bet on Dongfang Hao's victory at odds of 500 to 1, but Lu Ming's bet was 100 to 1. It was 5 times higher. Everyone naturally chose Lu Ming. Chapter 2681 Inviting the Elders. As for the odds of Lu Ming winning, they ignored it. The odds of Lu Ming winning were 150 at the burly man's bet. No one was willing to bet. Now that Lu Ming's bet was 1:1, who would still bet? Wait, we'll bet on you. If you're killed by Dongfang Hao, who will we go to for the divine crystals? That's right. When you're killed by Dongfang Hao, all your treasures will be his. Who are we going to get them from? Many people shouted. Indeed, when Lu Ming died in battle, they would not be able to get back the divine crystals they had bet with interest. How about this? I'll find an elder of the tribunal council to be my witness and hand over all the divine crystals. If I die in battle, you can go to the elder to collect the divine crystals. Lu Ming said, Find an elder of the tribunal council as a witness? Who do you think you are? You're able to invite an elder of the tribunal council? You don't even need a draft to brag. Many people looked down on him. The enforcement hall's elders were high and mighty. How could Lu Ming, a new outer sect disciple, be able to invite them? We'll know if I can or not after a while. You guys wait for me here. I'll be right back. With that, Lu Ming rose into the air and headed for the law enforcement hall. There was an enforcement hall in both the inner and outer gates. The law enforcement hall was in charge of law enforcement. It had great power and its words were final. Lu Ming really went to invite the elders of the enforcement hall. Can he really invite them? How is that possible? Do you believe that I can invite the sect master, just as he can invite the magic elders? Regardless of whether it's true or not, let's just wait for a while. It won't take much time anyway. The crowd discussed and waited. The news of Lu Ming being the banker and placing bets had spread. More outer sect disciples had gathered in this area. It even attracted some outer sect deacons and elders. Soon, a huge palace appeared in front of Lu Ming. This was the outer law enforcement hall. Stop! At the entrance of the law enforcement hall, two young men stopped Lu Ming. I would like to see the enforcement palace's elder. Lu Ming said, You're just a 4th-level ethereal god realm warrior. You want to meet an elder of the tribunal council? What a joke, get lost. A young man waved his hand, his attitude was bad. Lu Ming frowned. He was clear that those who held positions in the tribunal council were not outer sect disciples, but inner sect disciples. They were all at the true god realm or above, otherwise, how could they suppress so many outer sect disciples? It was normal for these people to look down on him. The two of you can just go and report. Lu Ming said, neither servile nor overbearing. Report. Who do you think you are? On what basis do you want us to report? It was still the same young man who sneered coldly. The people of the enforcement hall had great power. Most of the outer sect disciples were trembling with fear when they saw them. However, Lu Ming's expression was calm when he saw them. This made them a little unhappy. With this, is it okay? Lu Ming said coldly and took out the gold token. Why is it useless? What? Yellow. Gold token? The young man was arrogant at first, but when he saw the golden token, he almost bit his tongue and his eyes almost popped out. Now go and pass the message. Lu Ming said with a sullen face. Yes. I failed to recognize Mount Tai just now. This young master, I hope that a great man like you will not hold a grudge against me and not lower yourself to my level. The young man who berated Lu Ming earlier broke out in a cold sweat. He bowed his head in fear and trepidation. He knew very well that whoever had a golden token was definitely someone with a great background. He couldn't afford to offend them. He wished that he could slap himself. He hated himself for having a cheap mouth just now. He did not know how Lu Ming would deal with him. Go and pass the message. Lu Ming said coldly. Yes, please wait a moment. The young man nodded and bowed, then quickly ran into pass on the message. Not long after, 3 old men in black robes inlaid with gold followed the young man out. These 3 old men were the outer sect enforcement hall's elders. Black robes with gold embellishments were their symbol. Little brother, do you really have a gold token? One of the elders looked at Lu Ming. Not bad. Lu Ming took out the gold token again. It really is a gold token. The 3 old men looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. Little brother, why are you looking for us? An elder said with a pleasant expression. As the enforcement hall's elders, they knew much more inside information. They knew very well that only the sect master and a few grand supreme elders had the golden token of the Kongxian sect. Lu Ming was young and his cultivation level was not high, but he actually had a golden token. It was obvious that he had an unusual relationship with the sect master or the grand supreme elders. Naturally, they had to curry favor with him. Seniors, it's like this. Lu Ming told them about his intention to set up a bet and asked them to be the witnesses. So it's this matter. This is a small matter. Well, go with you. That's right, it's a small matter. The few elders were all smiles. The eyelids of the two young men guarding the door twitched. They could swear to the heavens that if anyone else dared to come and find the 3 law enforcement elders to witness such a ridiculous thing, they would definitely be slapped to death by them. However, they were not displeased with Lu Ming at all. It was all because of the gold token. Then he'll have to trouble the seniors. Lu Ming cupped his fists. A small matter, just a small matter. A few enforcement hall elders smiled amicably, then flew toward the outer gate area with Lu Ming. More and more people gathered around the life-and-death battle stage in the outer gate area. And NBSB Huang Wu, Huang Wen, Dongfang Hao, and the others had also arrived. He's here, Lu Ming is here. Suddenly, someone shouted. Everyone looked in the same direction. Then, everyone's eyes couldn't help but widen. Behind Lu Ming were 3 old men in black robes inlaid with gold. They were all too familiar to the outer sect disciples. They were the elders of the law enforcement hall. Nest, are my eyes playing tricks on me? Are those really elders of the tribunal council? And there are 3 of them? I'm fucking super. Your eyes aren't playing tricks on you. I saw it too. My God, what's this kid's background? He's actually able to invite an elder of the enforcement palace. The people who were certain that Lu Ming would not be able to invite the enforcement hall's elder felt as if their throats were blocked by a ball of dog fur. Their faces were flushed red. This kid, Huang Wen, Huang Wu, and the rest narrowed their eyes. They could not help but guess that Lu Ming had some kind of background. Then they all shook their heads. They had inquired about Lu Ming's background. He was just an outer sect disciple who had just entered the sect. He was talented, but he did not have any background. No matter what methods he used, he will die in a few days. Dongfang Hao said coldly. He had absolute confidence in himself. You're tuning in to the Bli Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.